Well, greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Dinner Club Jamboree, or Jambo, as we called it today. Kate was just saying to me before I turned the mic on here that despite the fact that I was in the UK for 31 years, I didn't really pick up an accent.
Like not even a tiny smidgen.
Yeah, I don't hear any.
I mean, I lost a lot of my New England accent
Hello?
when I
Can
moved.
you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, but
we can
video's-
hear you, but your video
There we
was paused.
Can you guys hear me?
We
Yes.
can kind of hear you.
Say something.
Oh,
Move.
now
Say
you're
something.
all-
Yes, we're saying
Yes.
something. Hello.
Yeah, we are all kinds of saying things.
Oh no, this there
hear
seems to be some issues
me
with.
now? Can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
We can
but-
hear you.
Oh, dang it! I'm not on camera. Not enthusiastically.
Uh-oh.
Oh, dearie me.
Well, that's a great way to start the stream with some technical issues. All right. He's probably
never
having
sure.
some internet issues.
We're still broadcasting though. Yes, they're still seeing this.
Yes, they are.
Okay, fair enough. Well, what I was saying, was that I moved from Vermont to Seattle and lived there for like 20 years. And then I've been here in San Diego for like 6 or 7 or something. And most of New England is gone. Like, gone. I think the only thing I've retained is that a lot of times I will drop my T's. They become glottal stops instead. But other than that, I don't sound like I'm from Vermont anymore.
I'm not familiar enough with what Vermonters,
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not really familiar with the accent, really. So I could probably be talking to someone. You probably could have it right now, and I wouldn't know.
Well, if you've heard Maine or New Hampshire, you've basically heard the same thing. Minor differences, but same basic concept. Nothing like Boston, though.
Right.
Boston.
Also, if you go to New England, prepare to hear a lot of people pronounce French words phonetically.
Right.
Like, I'm not even gonna, people, their last names even. There were kids in my school, Bonnie Dubois and Jason Desjardins, and that's how they pronounce their own names, right? But I know a lot of folks who speak French who are horrified at the concept.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know anybody who speaks French as their first language. I've never really made any French friends, which is kind of surprising considering I was over in Europe for such a long time. I had a French roommate once, but he didn't like me very much. Shocking, right?
There was a kid from Switzerland in, was it middle school or high school? I don't remember exactly, but yeah, and I guess they speak French there, or some of them do. I don't know. His native language was French, but he was from Switzerland, whatever. But that's maybe the only person I've known whose native language was French.
Sorry, say that again. I
said that may have been the only person I've known whose native language was French.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Oh, well, no, I take that back. I was discounting everyone from Quebec when I said that.
Right. Well,
hey, I want to check on something. I'll be right back.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, Kate, I don't think that I don't really feel like my accent changed, but oftentimes when I'd come back from Britain to America to visit, people would tell me they could hear something on my voice that I didn't detect. You know what I mean? I think it's mostly because I just use some of the words that British people use and that Americans aren't normally. I mean, like I just say mate real easy, for example, that it comes right out. And I think since the internet, that's not so alien anymore anyway. I like calling another guy mate, but back in the day it was kind of like, whoa dude, I'm not your mate, Yeah.
Well, I watch a lot of Australian stand-up for whatever reason, and mate comes up a lot. And then there's all those Britcoms I watch, and that,
Right.
there's any football hooligan in there anywhere, mates coming out to play frequently.
Yeah, like every sentence. So, when you say you watch Britcoms, what do you like? What do you mean, like Gavin and Stacey, or Absolutely Fabulous, or more modern stuff than that?
Well, I was thinking like Red Dwarf, the IT Crowd, Spaced. Even some of the older stuff, Blackadder, Faulty Towers. I recently ran across Allo Allo and was surprised by how much I liked it. A few others. I mean,
Allo is very much of its time. So if you can forgive that, then it's easy.
Well, and I don't know, there was this one, it was Netflix only, called Sick Note. It's got Rupert Grint and why do I keep blanking on his name? Nick Frost, I want to say, the guy who's always with Simon Pegg. And it is the darkest it's hilariously dark. It's really fun. It's called Sick Note. It like starts with a misdiagnosis of cancer and ends with like mass murder. It's crazy pants, but it's just like this whole like dude tells one lie and that lie snowballs into this horrific it's a lot of fun if you like dark humor.
Yeah, and I do like dark humor. And sometimes I feel like I should be ashamed of myself sometimes for laughing at certain jokes or visual occurrences in a movie. Like, for example, in Pulp Fiction, when John Travolta turns around with a gun in his hand and accidentally shoots the guy in the back seat in the head. I laughed out loud, and so did most of the people in the cinema at the time.
Yeah,
that's not funny. Somebody just got killed, but it's because he was stupid and waving his gun around like an idiot.
Go on to YouTube and look up like Friends Ross with no laugh track, right? With no laugh track. Because if you watch some of the stuff that Ross on Friends, the sitcom Friends back in the 90s for some years, like some of the stuff he does without the laugh track is so psycho killer creepy. It's not even funny. Like, seriously, it's crazy how dark the stuff he says is when you don't have the cue to laugh.
Right. I didn't realize, maybe I should have, right? But I didn't realize that Friends wasn't filmed in front of a studio audience. I didn't realize it was canned laughter.
Well, whether it is or not, people can edit that out so easily these days.
Sure. Right. Yeah. I don't know. Normally, when I think about it, when they film in front of a studio audience, they say so, film for studio audience. Or maybe that was like just a 70s thing. I don't know. But like All in the Family.
I remember from the 80s. They said it on Cheers all the time.
Huh?
They said on Cheers all the time.
Yeah, and all a whole bunch of shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
But shows you know the laughter is canned, or shows like MASH, because that couldn't be filmed in front of a live audience.
Well, and even if it could have, I remember they were saying something about how they couldn't have a laugh track while they're operating on people, because that's kind of grim. And if you have a laugh track while there's these people fighting for their lives, it's kind of dark. So the producers made the conscious decision to only have a laugh track outside of the OR. That was some trivia I picked up somewhere. I don't even know from where, but it amuses the hell out of me.
Yeah. I don't know. Give me some other examples of dark humor that you appreciate.
Okay. Well, dark humor is like a child with cancer. It never gets old.
I've heard that joke before, and it gets me every single time.
A clown and a 5-year-old boy are walking through the woods at night. Little boy turns to the clown and says, "I'm scared." And the clown says, "Well, how do you think I feel? I have to walk home alone." I like dark humor. What can I say?
Yeah, that works for me. Did you ever see the movie? It must be 20 years old by now. I think it maybe even more, maybe 25 years old. Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, love that. One of my favorite movies of all time, for sure.
It's like 90-91, something like that. That's
Is it that old?
Well,
yeah, it's 30 years old. It is.
It on the shelf when I was working at the video store in high school, and that would have been about 1993-ish. So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize it was that old, but yeah. No, I put off watching that movie for ages. But then when I finally watched it, I realized it was aimed directly at me. I just it was perfectly matched my sort of sense of humor. Like I say, I do like dark comedy. Kate, you were saying you like Australian comedians stand up. Do you like Jim Jeffries?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's hilariously funny. He talks about poop a little too much, but other than that, I think he's great.
Right. Well, I was very fortunate when I went back to California a couple of years ago on a visit, obviously, and I went to see Jim Jeffries in my hometown of Santa Rosa. So there's like maybe 2,500 people in the auditorium or whatever, and he had a person that did an opener for him who did like, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes of an opening show, and then Jim Jeffries came out and did like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Damn.
And you got to be damn funny to keep an audience laughing for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Well, he is funny. I have to say. I mean, I think what it is I like humor that crosses lines, and boy, oh boy, does his. I mean, he really doesn't look at anything and go, I can't touch that. There's really nothing he won't joke about. And I like that. I mean, I think the best humor is the humor that makes me go, oh, that's terrible. I love it. Like, I don't know if you guys watch Young Sheldon, but I love Missy. She's so cold-blooded. I mean, there's just something about a cold-blooded 11-year-old that's hilariously funny to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just like that. Like you say, when I first started watching Jim Jeffries videos on YouTube, that guy, was it, is it alcopocalypse or something like that. I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, it's a pretty funny one. And you just find yourself with your jaw wide open going, you can't say that. And you can't say that. And I quite like that angle of humor. Doug Stanhope takes it even further to the point where you really can't say that. But,
So what do you think of Christopher Titus?
I've not heard of that person.
Not familiar.
You should check him out. He's kind of funny. He, well, unfortunately, he kind of assumes that everyone's from the wrong side of the tracks like he is. But other than that, I mean, his humor's pretty dark, and it's built off of a lot of his really terrible home life. But he presents it in a way where you can laugh at how terrible it was. Like, oh my gosh, that was awful. And for some reason, it's funny that it was that awful. I don't know. He brings you along with him, is what I'm saying.
Right. That's cool. There's movies that carry you along because they're awful, even though they're awful. What's that one that I think that Peter Jackson did? Is it called Brain Dead? Have you ever seen that? Where it's like people using like lawnmowers and stuff to chop up zombies.
Oh. Yes. Hold on. I think I know the one you're talking about, but
it's literally the goriest movie I ever saw. And that
also kind of vaguely reminds me of They Live, which was also Peter Jackson.
No, They Live is John Carpenter.
Oh, no, sorry, not They Live. Bad Taste. That's the one I'm thinking of. Bad Taste.
Bad Taste. Yeah, that is.
The one where they're like cooking the guy and he's got the apple in the mouth.
Yeah,
Bad Taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember there was something, dude, like his head was cut apart. So he like tied it together with a tie or a belt or something. And he's going around with a chainsaw trying to kill aliens with it or something. I don't know.
Well, there was a period of time, mostly I think in the 80s, where like the what is it called? I'm not sure if it's the Halloween movies or the Friday the 13th movies, but it was just like each new movie was, let's kill people with a different set of garden implements that we didn't kill them with in the last movie, and it got to be like, we haven't used a circular saw on the end of a stick yet. Yeah. Whatever. One of those things. Yeah. But I don't know. I remember when I watched Friday the 13th, the first movie, and I saw it on opening night. So the false ending thing wasn't really a cliche in horror movies yet. And I'm pretty sure it started with Friday the 13th, because, when you think the movie's over and then the boy all comes out of the water all mossy and drags her down into the lake, not only me, but everybody else in the cinema jumped and screamed. I mean, I jumped out of my fucking seat, and that's never happened to me before or since, in a movie, because I thought it was really over. But once you have that one, then every time it happens again in a horror movie, like Nightmare on Elm Street, you're like, oh yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
It's not really over, you know.
No, I think it's funny when they have these. There's the movies where they put in. They'll start the end credits, and then suddenly they'll clip to a whole bunch of scenes, and then they'll finish the end credits, and it kind of forces people to. It gets people in the mindset. Oh, wait, let's not leave the theater yet. What if they have a scene? So I don't know. For myself, I know I always watch all the way to the very end of the credits.
Oh, absolutely. Although I have to admit, in this day and age where things are streaming, I just fast forward to the end. In fact, I don't even fast forward. I mouse over the time bar and look at the thumbnail to see if there's anything but text. You know, I like being able to shortcut it, to hopscotch over all of the BS. You know, it's not like being in the theater where you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to sit here for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're listing all of the babies that were born during the production. I hate you, Pixar. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So
Yeah. Hey, so with that in mind, you know, because like the Marvel movies and everything often have like the kicker thing after some part of the credits, and some of the Marvel movies even have two kicker things, and they do what you just said. They'll have the credits for a while, then they have the kicker thing, and then they have the rest of the credits, and you think it's done, but then there's one more kicker thing. Well, I watched Don't Look Up 4 times, and on the 5th time, I accidentally let it keep going. And there's a double kicker at the end that I didn't even know about. So I watched it 4 times and didn't even know it, because I thought after the first kicker, I thought that was it. And it turned out not to be. So.
I actually haven't seen that one yet. I really need to.
What?
Well, no, I mean, I've been busy watching other stuff, and you know.
Yeah, it's long though. It's long, but it's worth it. It's like 2 hours and plus, but it's, you know, it is definitely worth it. And yeah, we'll have to have a conversation about it afterwards, Kate, because I'd be very interested in your take on Don't Look Up.
Fair enough. I don't know. My take on things is so wildly off anyway, as it is. So.
That's why we love you, babe. Yep.
Well, it's why some of you love me. It's why some of you loathe me. I mean, you know. Well, okay. I can give you some recent examples of how some people, I've even lost friends over this whole thing about Will Smith and Chris Rock. Don't get me started.
I would love to get you started, because you weren't here when we talked about it contemporaneously, and I would be very interested to hear your take.
All right. Okay, here's my arm twist. Okay, stop. All right, fine. Chris Rock was a fucking bully and deserved everything he got. In fact, I wish Will Smith had uppercutted him.
And you lost friends over that.
I did. Well, you know, basically it's the people who take it as an axiom that violence is never the answer. Bullcrap. Some people, that's the only language they understand. You know? I'm like, it's really easy to hold back an insult. It's not so easy to hold yourself back after being insulted. Chris Rock could have kept his mouth shut. He's been harassing that family for years, and I only just recently learned that it might be because she turned him down 20 years ago. Okay, so he's been being a royal rat bastard in their direction for ages. He deserved what he got and more. Okay, I have zero tolerance for bullies, none whatsoever. And, you know, I've been posting that meme around everywhere since this topic came up, where it shows like the Avengers or whatever. And it says teachers rushing to save the bully after the quiet kid finally fights back, you know, because I experienced that one in school. Oh boy, howdy, where I finally have enough of someone's shit and I couldn't get justice out of the adults. And so I finally take a swing. And the next thing you know, I'm the one in trouble. You know, and I'm like, no, I have no tolerance for that. If you're a bully, fuck off. You've like forfeited every last scrap of sympathy you might ever have gotten from me.
Well, I can dig the fact. I don't necessarily think Chris Rock needs sympathy per se, but I mean, I'm one of those people. Okay, you know, you've known me for years. You already know this about me. It's not news. I don't think violence is ever acceptable for an insult or hurt feelings. That's just me. But it's easy for me to say because I'm in a very privileged position. People don't direct their violence at me very often for any reason, you know?
Now, I didn't know that there was a past about that. I thought he and Chris Rock were friends. So
I mean, have you never been friends with someone who is also kind of a little bit being a cunt?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But I didn't know that there was a history of bullying, so I had no idea of that. So that kind of does bring a little different twist to it. So
I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily bullying, but it was one of those like constant needling things, as I understand, just little things over time that builds up, you know? And I mean, that's the thing is it does seem like a lot of people are siding with the folks who just want to be verbally obnoxious. You know, where it's like they can be as verbally obnoxious as they like, they can be as cutting as they like, and face zero consequences for it, unless it's just people go, they're a jerk, I don't want to hang out with them anymore. They never really have anything that prevents them from being a jerk in the first place. That makes them go, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't say that thing. You know, people are never interested in preventing the bullying. That's the part that always bothers me is they never want to prevent the person who's being a jerk from being able to constantly needle someone until they lose their shit.
yeah,
I hear what you're saying. I do.
yeah, I hear what you're saying too. But there's at what point does something be like? What point does it become punching down? And at what point, when there is something that's punching down, where do we draw the line in where when something punching down is considered unacceptable? And I ask that just because that's kind of what Chris Rock was doing when he made that comment initially. He made that joke. It was at someone's expense, and it was kind of punching down. So
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, nobody gets to decide how what they say will be taken. They can tell you what they intended, but in the end, they said it. And when you heard it, you reacted a certain way, and it may not be what they expected from you. They don't get to play all innocent now that it's been taken badly. You know, either they can say, oops, my bad, or they can say, dude, just chill, it's a joke. And when they've said that one, now you know you got a bully on your hands.
Well, I hear you. I do. I understand the point you're making. I just don't really think in that same way.
Well, let me ask, were you bullied as a kid?
Uh, it depends on your perspective. I felt like it, but then again, I saw people get bullied lots worse than me. So maybe it wasn't being bullied. Maybe it was just the normal sassy cruelty of children. I don't know.
Well, I guess the reason I ask, I mean, it wasn't like meant to be snide or gotcha or anything. The reason I ask is I do wonder if the people who are on Will's side were bullied, were the people who were on Chris's side were bullies, or were witnessed bullying, but were never the victims of it, and so can't really empathize with the people who've been on the receiving end of obnoxious behavior, consistent obnoxious behavior. And let's remember what Chris Rock did. He did it on like globally broadcast television about a guy's wife's medical condition. I mean, the fact that he got pissed about it doesn't shock me in the least.
Well, I mean, the thing just really quickly, Kazum, I mean, the thing I think about it is like, I've in my young man years, I've known guys who will literally fight because someone looked at them the wrong way, as in their opinion. So there's this whole thing about where do you draw the line for offense that says it's okay to beat someone up? Is a dirty look okay to beat someone up over?
Well, no. I mean, here's the thing. It's obviously going to be a blurry line. I mean, there's no way you can just draw a hard and fast line and then people will start towing it immediately. You can't do that. But there is a certain amount of I know it when I see it going on here. And I know that if someone names somebody and directly references a medical condition that they can't help about themselves, and obviously, like, she's been open about the fact that she's sensitive about it, and then this dude gets up on stage in front of the whole world and starts, tweeting her about it. I mean, if we can't agree that at least is over the line, then I don't think we can agree on anything.
Well, sure. I mean, I understand that that there may have been a legitimate reason for offense at Chris's joke, right? And I understand that, but I mean, I don't know if you saw Peach's video or not that she did about this subject, Kate, but one of the points that she made in the video was, I mean, if Amy Schumer or Wanda Sykes or Regina Hall had made the same joke, would the same thing have happened? Or what if it was The Rock doing the presenting? Would Will Smith have walked up and slapped The Rock? You know?
Well,
I think it's
you'd have
valid
to have
points.
that same history with Chris Rock, of course.
Well, I mean, but the joke would be the same. The offense would be the same.
Well, but that's the thing, though. No, it's not. See, that's the thing. And that's the thing that always bugged me when people would be talking about, like, you know, oh, you've been bullied for months, even years by this person. Well, look at the thing that set you off. It was so minor. That's bullshit. You can't point to one little tiny incident and say that's the entirety of the incident. You know, if there's a history, there's a larger
context. Yeah, there's a context.
Well, I mean, without that larger context, my position on the matter might change. And that's another thing that bugs the crap out of me is people are like, oh, so you're applying a certain standard to this incident, then let's extend that logic. You know, by that logic, I can then extrapolate to you concluding this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, no, that's bullshit. You're cherry picking factors. You're cherry picking, you know, like criteria, and then applying it without my consent.
Sure.
You know.
What I just wanted to point out just real quick, though, that Will Smith initially laughed at it. Then when you look at the footage, then you see his wife have this look on her face. She rolls her eyes. It's at that point in which Will Smith gets mad. Before then, he was laughing at the joke. And I just wanted to point that out. You can look at the footage. He laughs at it at first.
Mm-hmm. But then
just wanted to point that out.
But then he sees that, like, a member of his family and the target of the joke isn't happy about it. And I get that, wanting to stand up and go, okay, you don't get to do that to my family. It's kind of like, I'm always amused by this. I mean, I'm an only child, but every now and then I see something, usually in stories, but sometimes in real life, where you get the siblings who are always fighting. But as soon as someone who's not a member of the family threatens one of them, all of a sudden it's, get your hands off my sister, you know?
Yeah.
And that seemed to be the same sort of energy I was getting off of Will Smith, where it's like he was kind of laughing. Then he realizes his wife didn't like it. And he's like, uh-oh, you didn't get to do that to my wife. She's not happy. If she'd laughed, I would have stayed in my seat, kind of thing. You know?
Yeah. Kate, I don't know if you can see the screen or not, but it says, Deep Ashtray says, Smith has been a huge celebrity with the world stage. He could retaliate in countless ways that did not include a physical attack. What do you think about that?
That statement is incomplete, because what it doesn't address is whether or not those ways would be effective, whether those ways would convey the message, would perhaps create something in the future where those kinds of insults aren't hurled anymore. I mean, sure, he could get up and go, that wasn't nice, dude, but what's that going to solve? You know, I mean, that's the problem with people going, oh, he could have reacted anyway. Sure. But what would these ways have done? What would they have accomplished? Because if the goal is to if the goal is to get Chris Rock to shut his fucking mouth and not talk about it anymore, you know, it seems to me that punching him in his mouth is about the only way to accomplish that. That's the only language bullies understand. That's the only way you get them to stop, is by showing them that the price of continuing is too high for them to afford.
But the joke had already passed, though. The damage had already been done. I don't think Will Smith's slap stopped Chris Rock from being crude further in the thing. I don't think it's.
How do you stop a bully? What is the effective way of making them no longer at least using you as their target? How do you get them to knock it off in a way that is culturally approved? Because as near as I can tell, a belt in the mouth is the only way to get someone to get off your back if you can't get justice from those in authority.
Like how could we have stopped Rush Limbaugh, for instance? Because Rush Limbaugh was a bully and a lot of his humor was bullying. So what would have been an effective way of stopping him?
Well, I don't know, but I'm asking you, what would have stopped Chris Rock from that moment on, from what would have gotten him to no longer make those jokes at the expense of the Smith family? What would have accomplished that, if not belting him in the teeth?
But he might not have had any more jokes. It might have just been that one joke.
It was just that one joke. He had no material he was going to use, but he had to suspend his act.
again, I'm asking if there's like, oh, that one incident, and then that one incident, and then that one incident, and then that one incident, and everyone always looks at only one incident every time there's a kerfuffle, and they never stop and put it together that what's at the center of it is this person who's constantly needling you. At what point do you say, I have to take this into my own hands? At what point is that justified? Or are you saying that you have to just take it for the rest of your life because no one else will fucking help you?
I take the point you're making, I really do. And but my only retort, weak though it may be, is that it hasn't been shown to be the case that the slap will change Chris Rock's behavior.
Like he could even double down. Chris Rock might even double down and start doing that kind of humor even more, just because he knows it gets a rise out of people.
But I mean, another part of it also is he did do it right to her face. I mean, getting up on stage and making fun of somebody like, I mean, we were talking about Jim Jeffries. He does that routine about Bill Cosby. I don't think Bill Cosby is going to come up to Jim Jeffries and belt him one unless he does that routine right at Bill Cosby, who's sitting in the front row, the way Chris Rock did it to Jada, right? Is it Pinkett Smith or just Smith? I don't know.
Roasting.
Well, it doesn't matter. He gave her shit about a medical condition that she's said publicly she's sensitive about it. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Even if that's true, I don't know. I think that I take the point you're making about the accumulation of attack and everything like that, and I just don't think it's ever acceptable to.
Well, there has to be a recourse. Until there is a recourse that doesn't involve violence, I think violence is justified. Until someone gives an effective method of getting a bully to stop.
Violence is effective.
Okay, let's put this. Okay, I'll tell you what. If it's any less effective, it's more satisfying when you get to do it to that person who's been giving you shit for so long.
True.
One way. So, I mean, one way or another, it has to end. And if the only way for it to end is to rearrange someone's facial features, then that's what you got to do. But they have the choice to not make your day worse. They have the choice to treat you in a neighborly fashion. They can share and play nicely with the other kids, and the incident wouldn't exist without their misbehavior. So as far as I'm concerned, they deserve everything they get.
Fair enough. Well,
oh God, I'm reading Deep Ashtray's most recent post there, and that's just depressing. I've been kind of staying away from some of the news, and I hadn't heard about that. I'll have to look at that. That's horrible. That's horrifying.
Yeah. Is this the one where they like bombed a train station or something?
Yeah, and there was hundreds of people queuing up to get the hell out of town. And anyway, bombing a train station, that obviously civilian train station like that, they need to be able to get refugees away from conflict zones. And, I really, really don't like the idea of military interventions at all. But there comes a point, and I'm not sure when that point is, but I mean, these war crimes are just piling up and piling up. And at what point does this slaughter become genocide? I don't know. I'm not qualified to make that call, but I don't know.
I'll be right back. I want to check on something again.
Okay.
Well, I have been thinking about the whole thing going on in Russia and Ukraine and all of that, and I mean,
I'm trying, but I don't think I can hear you guys.
Oh, hey, been a while.
Stupid thing. I don't know why.
I've heard it described like Putin is playing nuclear chicken with
Can
the
you
rest
guys?
of the
I
world.
can't hear anything from you guys. I'm trying to get my headset to work, but it just.
I'm gonna turn your mic off for a second. Yeah, I feel as well, Kate. I feel it's an exercise in provocation.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know how far he's willing to take it, but I also understand that he has as much of a roadblock between him and the nukes as our president does. So that gives me at least a little bit of hope that it won't turn global nuclear, but at the same time, I don't see an end game because I don't think Putin will give in a way that doesn't allow him to save face, that doesn't allow him to save his ego, which means I don't think there's a way out of this where he loses the war in Ukraine. And I think someone has to take him out one way or another for this to end without a nuclear conflict, unless he wins in Ukraine, in which case he'll be like neener neener and he won't launch. But I don't know how this ends well without him getting taken down.
Well, there can't be any end well for the Ukrainians, right? Because lots of their cities are totally smashed. So even if it stopped tomorrow and everybody decided to go home and get drunk on vodka in Russia, Ukraine is going to take years and years to get back on its feet. I mean, it's not just that they're killing people. They're ruining like domestic dwellings. They're ruining all the vehicles they come across. Every car they come across gets ruined. I mean, the whole country is going to be completely devastated.
Okay, point of clarification. When I said end well, I meant for the world, like globally.
Of course, I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to imply otherwise. But like, I mean, like the thing is, yeah, there's. And meanwhile, I'm totally like an anti-war dude, as you must know, right? But this comes to the point you're making about bullies as well. You know, when someone tramples across sovereign territory and has no regard for, human life, international conventions and, the rules of war and all that kind of crap. Yeah, like you said, what can you do to stop him other than stop him, right? I mean, and that's dark, I don't like to contemplate stuff like that. But I think, the thing is that, what do you think about this, Kate? I mean, in the United States, the president has some pretty heavy duty security, but right now, because Russia, I mean, Putin is unofficially one of the richest people in the world, and all by itself that should make him one of the most protected people in the world. And then you add on the fact that he's the leader of one of the more powerful nations in the world. He must have the most incredible security there is. So it doesn't seem like taking him out as a person.
Oh well, I don't think that, like, a SEAL team, or what is it in Britain? Is it MI6? I don't know, or maybe it's just James Bond. But whatever, the point is that I'm not picturing like that kind of thing. I'm picturing more like a palace coup. I'm thinking, Brutus kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I had two Brute. I don't know why every time I try to say Brutus, it comes out Judas in my head, and I'm like, I know that's the wrong guy. But no, I mean, I'm not sure. But then what's the guy in Ukraine? Is it Zelensky? Is how it's pronounced?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What is he like? Survived 12 assassination attempts already?
Probably. It doesn't sound incredible to me, considering.
Well, I mean, I saw an article. It was in the double digits, I'm sure of it. But, like, seriously, if he can survive it, then I imagine Putin, his security is probably even better.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the situation that Zelensky's in, I mean, it must be impossible to know who to trust, Well,
I love how the dude's a stand-up comedian, too.
Yeah, the fact that he's different than Trump in the sense that even though he was a bit of an entertainer before he became the leader of the country, I mean, this is like a normal person with a human heart, whereas Trump is a, toxic narcissist, and they can't really be compared other than the fact they both used to be on TV.
Well, Zelensky was at least trying to be funny.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I saw a couple clips of some of the shows that he used to be on, and he definitely has a good sense of humor, I think. And but it's there's a cliche. I think some men are born great, some men become great, and some men have greatness thrust upon them. And I think he fits the latter description. He's
well, Zelensky. He also does humor making fun of himself. So. Right. And that's not something that's not the type of humor that Trump, I don't think Trump's really even capable of that. So,
well, and self-deprecating humor can be pretty funny. I just wish I was any good at it. Sorry, that's the oldest joke in the world. But if someone didn't make it, yeah, no, I mean, and it is actually kind of funny. I do like self-deprecating humor. I mean, or at least half self-deprecating. Like, do you know Stephen Wright?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he does that sort of droning kind of, and it's a little bit at his own expense, but not always. I mean, it feels like he's making fun of himself through the whole routine,
Kazoom, you totally do know who Stephen Wright is. You just don't recognize the name. For one thing, Stephen Wright did the radio voice in the movie Reservoir Dogs. So he's the guy on the radio, you know. Anyway, but his style of comedy I will try to imitate. So I came home from work the other day and someone had stolen all my furniture and replaced it with exact replicas. You know, that kind of thing. He's even more droney than that, though.
Yeah, and he has the look for it too. I mean, he kind of looks like a cross between Einstein and one of the Stooges.
Yeah, that's a good
Right.
perfect description. Yeah, between Einstein and Larry. Yeah. Oh, I haven't watched the Stooges since I was a kid. I used to love that stuff.
Well, it's funny. My parents
Hey,
sat me down in front of the Three Stooges and Little Rascals, and why am I blanking on their names? Abbott and Costello, and I believe what were the other guys who were like the
Laurel and
distant
Hardy.
Abbott Costello? No, the other guys. There were these two guys that were trying so hard to be Abbott and Costello, and they just weren't. Oh, well, whatever. My parents sat me down in front of all of them. The only ones that really stuck were Abbott and Costello.
What were you going to say, Kazoom?
Oh, I was just going to ask, when I was headed out, I thought when I looked over at the screen, I thought I saw Sister Danger here for just a second, and then when I came back, she was gone.
That's right. She was unable to get her equipment to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The camera was working, but she couldn't hear us for whatever
Okay.
reason. Yeah. So maybe she'll try and come back. Yeah.
Laurel and
Deep Ash
Hardy?
says- Laurel and
Yeah.
Hardy. I think you're thinking Laurel and
No.
Hardy.
No, I may have someone else. I know Laurel and Hardy's shtick. It's somebody else. But what Deep Ashtray said there, the Marx Brothers, I like them, but I really only like Groucho because that sense of humor. I love that sense of humor.
Sure. Yeah, Groucho was great. But some of those old Marx Brothers movies, A Night at the Opera, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's really funny. My son, when he was growing up, my son and both my kids are millennials, right? And my son used to refuse to watch anything if it was in black and white. Anything. It didn't matter how good it might be. He would not watch it because it was in black and white. And
Did he ever like explain that so it made sense, or what? Or is it just, did he just say, "Oh, it's just too old. It's just
too old to care about. Too old to care about." And even modern movies that were in black and white, he didn't really like to watch them. You know, not that there's that many of those, but yeah.
I do find it a little irritating at times. I am very visual. My memory is very visual. Obviously, I'm an artist, all of that. So I do find black and white film a little bit. See, disconcerting is the wrong word. It's too strong, but uncanny valley is also a little wrong. There's just something wrong about the world being black and white. But also those old movies, the soundtrack is very high pitched and screechy, and I find that hard to take as well.
And some of them, yeah, for sure. I mean, production values have come a long way, you know, that's for sure. I'm a sucker for a lot of those old movies. I don't really watch them anywhere near as much as I might like because they're hard to access nowadays. I mean, for some reason, if you want to watch old stuff on Amazon, they want to charge you lots of money for it. And I'm sorry, I'm not paying $3 to watch a 50-year-old movie that I could have seen 100 times on reruns between now and then on TV. But now that I never watch TV anymore, I have to pay for it. Fuck that. No. I'm not
And
doing
they don't seem to have them on Netflix. They don't seem to have them on. The only ones are the. Hey, Peter. What was the name of that? Criterion does have some. I forgot. There's a channel that's associated with them, and they have some older stuff. But yeah, to try to get really old movies in the mainstream, you can't find them.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer because as far as I'm concerned, they should be as close to free as possible because it's I don't know. They've surely got all the money they ever expected to get in 1942 or whatever from Casablanca, right? I mean, why are they still trying to charge?
You'd be surprised. I went to film school and everybody had to own a copy of freaking Casablanca. And I don't mean as part of the curriculum. I mean, it was just axiomatic. You're a film student. You fucking own a copy of that movie. They're still selling Casablanca. I'm telling you.
Oh, totally. I have a DVD of Casablanca myself, and Citizen Kane, and It's a Wonderful Life, and a whole bunch of old movies, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to watch them. You know?
It's just the element of this. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, wasn't it Disney or one of those companies that pushed to have copyright extended to like 90 years or something like that?
I think it was Disney. Yeah. Yeah,
I think they managed 75. I mean, don't quote me. I remember it used to be death plus 50, like death of the author plus 50. I think they got it to 75 first. Not sure after that.
Yeah, and I think it's different for some media. It used to be the same for like authors and music and film, but I think that there's different. I think they've stratified it now, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't really checked it out for a long time. But what do you? Hey, this is an old topic, but it's still the goods and bad things about it are still relevant to me personally, because I'm against taking old black and white movies and colorizing them. And this used to be a controversy way back in the day, but I think that nowadays, obviously, they've colorized so many movies. A lot of people don't even realize they're watching a movie that used to be black and white when they watch old movies, you know. But as an artist, Kate, what do you think about someone taking your original material and taking something that was intended to be in black and white and colorizing it is changing it in every meaningful way visually, right?
If it was meant to be in black and white, yes. If there were people who are like, gosh, we wish we could film this in color, but the technology doesn't exist yet, I bet they'd be like, finally. So, or maybe they'd be really attached to what they had created. And even though they could make it into what they originally envisioned, they're too attached to what they ended up making. I know what that can feel like.
Well, examples would be like Citizen Kane was intended to be in black and white. It actually said so in the script. And so that's one of the reasons, as far as I know anyway, they weren't allowed to color it. But some movies, like, say, for example, Dr. Strangelove, that's 1963. He could have made that in color, but he really didn't want to.
They've had colors.
Hold on, I hear something outside. I need to leave for a moment. I'll be back.
Well, okay, take for example Clerks. Kevin Smith would have loved to have done Clerks in color, but he couldn't afford it.
Right.
So, I mean, like, I'm not going to say that Kubrick couldn't afford it for Dr. Strangelove, but, we're not necessarily sure it was an artistic choice unless he said so.
I suppose.
So they've had color since, what, the 30s, I think? And they had certain
versions since the 30s, yeah.
They've had certain versions of color. There were older movies than that they colorized in certain ways, but it wasn't the same. But I seem to remember there was like they came out with some version that they were showing on TV of it. It's a Wonderful Life that was colorized, but that kind of fell out of popularity. And now you're far more likely, as far as I know, to see the black and white version, even though, decades ago they did a colorized version of the movie and it just didn't wash.
Right.
Well, one thing I had, and this is a little off the beaten path because it's not about fiction, but I've been seeing colorized footage of just old film, like people walking around in New York City, Ellis Island in 1890, whatever, and they've colorized it. And it's amazing how much it humanizes everything you're seeing. Because it's so dreamlike and stylized when it's in black and white and maybe not quite in time with, like 24 frames a second film speed, but then when they clean it up and it's like, wow, it's almost like you're looking through a portal in time now to see what it really looked like back then. And it had a visceral impact for me. I don't know if it did for other people, but I was like, wow, this really makes it feel like real life, where it used to just be a couple of lines in a history book, Right.
What were you going to say, Peter?
I was going to say that Deep Ashtray in the comment section mentioned a movie called They Shall Not Grow Old. I believe it was done by Peter Jackson, was like the main producer of it. But that was, it's like World War I footage where they colorized it like Bionic Dances saying, and it definitely adds another dimension to it, because as she said, there's lots of things like the frame rates might not be right, and just fixing things like the frame rates and colorizing things. It really does give you like a greater sense of being there,
right?
it's strange to watch some of those old things and think, okay, this is from, you know, the early days of film, and you're going down the streets of San Francisco or whatever, and you're thinking every single human being that is in this is in all likelihood, except for maybe that tiny little baby in a pram, you know, in the one shot there, like every single person in this is dead.
Right.
And it's like, there they are living and breathing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a series called World War II in Color that I watch a lot of, which again, I totally agree with the comments. I mean, it really humanizes it. It makes him look more like you just said, Peter. You can get a feeling for the fact that they were alive in a different kind of way when they're in color. I can't really describe it, but I guess it's because I was so used to seeing that type of footage in black and white for so long, and then you see it in color, and it really does sort of bring a lot more depth and life into it.
I think that being in black and white kind of holds the audience at a remove in a way if you're not from that era. I mean, I'm sure if you grew up watching those films when they were new, there was a certain amount of like, oh, that's that's real, that's happening now. But when you watch it and you're an 80s kid, it's like, oh, this is what they base Indiana Jones on, that kind of thing. It's like it doesn't quite have that same reality, visceral impact. I mean, hell, the Vietnam War is a hell of a lot closer to my birth than World War I or II, and even that has a certain unreality to it. Because I wasn't there for it. I didn't really live any part of that. It was over by the time I was making coherent memories.
Wow.
So even seeing like news footage of that still feels a little unreal.
I'm so old, right, that I actually grew up thinking that I would get drafted in to go fight in Vietnam.
Well, it's interesting.
What are you gonna say?
I was going to say, what I find interesting about that is even looking back on, go back to a period that you might not even think that is that long ago, to a television from, say, the early 2000s, like the 9/11 period. That's something that you might revisit from time to time. They'll show footage from 9/11. And even you can just tell the difference in not just the way people are dressed, but like the camera quality. There's even now, as I look back on footage from what is only 20 years ago, there is that sense of like, it doesn't really feel old until you go back and look at the footage, and it's like, okay, they were not shooting in HD. Cameras were not what they are now, or whatever it happens to be. It's almost like, in your mind, it doesn't seem like that long ago, and then you actually see the footage and see the camera, where camera technology was at, and the look of things, and then it's like, okay, now it seems old, when it's before it didn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
I get you. I mean, it's well, okay, don't get me started on people shooting in vertical video, but I mean, we've gotten to a point now. I mean, you know me, I'm an animator. I like to tell stories. I could shoot a decent short movie using nothing but my phone. I mean, and then all of the After Effects kind of stuff, the post-production and the animation, I'd undoubtedly add into it. But I mean, I don't need like a camera that's $20,000-$30,000 or whatever, as much as a car, what you need to film a Hollywood movie anymore. Now you can, I mean, I'm not sure which one it is, but I swear there's a movie out there that was shot entirely with cell phones, and that was like part of its selling like point or something. I don't know.
Wow.
But it's something that I've given a lot of thought to. There's a lot of projects I've wanted to do, maybe incorporating live action and animation together, and I could probably do it just with my phone.
Well, there's Samsung phones now. They're 8K, right? So that's like super high resolution.
Well, I've got a Samsung Galaxy, what is it, S20, I want to say?
Right.
I'm still trying to get over when they were able to use the sort of SLR, the digital SLR revolution in videography, like when the the Canon 5D Mark II came out, and now I have like another I don't remember what like the C100 or something like that, where you can use actual camera lenses and get the shallow depth of field that otherwise you would only see in movies and things like that prior to that. And that to me was that when that happened, I think it was 2008, 2009, the look of a lot of things changed. It went from this very, like this kind of camera, no depth of field, or,
right.
A very broad depth of field look, to almost, overnight you see the filtering in, even to like just people's YouTube vlogs of like this shallow depth of field that wasn't really achievable with webcams and old school camcorders like this before suddenly blew up and took over everything. But just as a complete tangent, Bionic Dance, were you around for Ice Storm 98? Because I was just thinking of old footage, like old television footage, and then I thought of you, and then I thought of that.
Well, in 1998, I would have been in Seattle.
So no.
No.
But maybe
no, I
your
guess
parents
also
would have...
if you want to, you can just call me Kate if you want.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. But so you didn't... I think you did mention in your interview about like growing up in Vermont, right? I don't want to
I did,
dox
yeah.
you or anything. Okay, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was just yeah, I'm not sure what part of... Oh, I guess maybe, yeah. But are you familiar with Ice Storm 98, or am I just rattling on?
I don't know. Well, you have to understand. I mean, it's been a while since we've chatted. My memory has turned into a Swiss cheese colander thanks to a whole bunch of different brain issues. So, you could say Ice Storm 98, and I could totally have visceral memories about it and never know it was called that, even though I totally knew it was called that once long ago.
Right.
Gotcha.
So
a lot of the books are on the shelf, but they don't have a label on them.
pretty much, yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way, for the curious, it's a Galaxy S20 FE 5G is my phone.
Okay, right.
I know it's kind of like, oh gosh, that's Elon Musk's third kid's name.
Right.
I think he has more than that now. I think he has like 7 kids or something ridiculous like that.
No.
Wow.
Well, I know he's had 2 with what's her face, the ones that had equation names. He's had 2 with her.
Yeah,
Well,
but both of them were surrogate births, so they're
Oh,
yeah. She didn't give birth to either of those children.
okay.
I think
But
he had
they're
like
her eggs.
I think he had like 5 with his first wife though.
Wow.
Well, at least he can afford them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if y'all realize or have heard, but I mean, I guess recently Elon Musk acquired a not controlling, but the largest single stockholder interest in Twitter. He's got 9% of Twitter now, and has forced himself onto the board. I'm kind of nervous about that, but I'm just nervous about megalomaniacs in general. Am I overreacting?
Well,
No.
I would say... Go ahead, Kate.
Oh no, I was pretty much done.
I would say that given his MO, the first thing he's going to do is get his publicist to say that he is one of the founders of Twitter, even though in spite of the fact that everyone knows that that's not true. I don't know if you've gone on any sort of deep dive about him, but you haven't.
No.
So if I were to say like he's the founder of PayPal, like a lot of people would believe that. If I were to say he's the founder of SpaceX, a lot of people would believe that. The founder of Tesla, a lot of people would believe that. None of those things are true.
Well, I know Tesla's been around for a long time.
He is a man who, like Donald Trump, was born on third base. His father owned like an emerald mine, and he, his family helped him pump money into early ventures that really went nowhere. But he essentially somebody who has failed upwards and has an amazing PR team and is amazing at building like a mythology around himself. And once you start to pull on the threads of, okay, what's this guy really done? What has he really invented? This, that, and the other thing. A lot of his mythos just falls to pieces. And then you start to see the way he behaves. Like you're saying, he has a bit of a megalomaniacal streak, and you go, oh, yeah.
Well, in the When Life Hands You Lemons column, he was talking about maybe getting people to add an edit button to Twitter, which, damn it, as someone who frequently typos, I really want. So even if he fucks up everything else, if he gives us that edit button, I can at least point to that and say, well, it wasn't all bad, I guess. Pointing at it from the burning wreckage that once was a good platform.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even agree that it was a good platform. I don't know what you guys get out of using it, but to me, when I first discovered it, it was one of those situations where I felt what turned out to be an earthquake, but I'd never experienced one before because they're not common, like in the areas that I've lived in my life. And I was like, wait a minute, was that an earthquake? So I Google it, and of course it's minutes after it happens. So the first result I find is Twitter, and it was completely new to me then. And in situations like that where you want that kind of up to the minute, was there just an earthquake in the Chicagoland area type of information, then yes, people are like, oh, they're tweeting from Chicago saying there was just an earthquake. Okay, that was an earthquake that I just felt, and I'm not just crazy.
Right.
On the other hand, so much of it seems to be the culture around Twitter seems to be people arguing to the point where it's like, wait a minute, what is the point of this site? It just like on every, it still amazes me that so many people can get locked into these arguments and these kerfuffles and all these other things where I just don't find it that engaging. I'm either dealing with like celebrities or strangers, or maybe people that I kind of casually know that are like, make YouTube videos or whatever. Sometimes I'll follow them on Twitter, but I don't even check it that often, to be that honest, because in terms of the dopamine reward roulette, it doesn't really do much for me in terms of what I'm getting out of it half the time that I'm going to use it. And I kind of wonder the people who are really into Twitter, what their experience is like that they're getting out of it.
Well, it sounds to me like you don't have a very well-developed inner troll.
Well, I kind of came at this from a very different perspective. Is I just like having, like ways to connect with my friends that aren't necessarily talking to them by voice. And I have some friends who will use Facebook, and some friends who will use Twitter, and some friends who absolutely will not use Facebook, and some friends who absolutely will not use Twitter. Right. And, and hell, I'm kind of the same. I absolutely will not use Discord, so it's like there's this whole thing of a Venn diagram of how do I talk to all of my friends. I have to be a member of this, and this if I want to stay in touch with everybody. Right. Kind of thing. And the only reason I don't use Discord is because I just can't fucking figure out how. Like, I understand the concept, but everything's beeping at me and I don't know where from. And someone said, oh yeah, post it in this like triply nested subgroup on my particular Discord. And I'm like, how the frick do I find it now? And it's just, there's too much, especially for my frickin' autistic brain. So,
Right. I would say though that like once the servers can be a bit daunting. I understand where you're coming from, where it's like a sub nested thing. Like I have a server for my RPG group, and I got all these little like breakout tabs that are labeled for different things. But if you just sort of look at it as a kind of instant messenger that you can, if you just imagine it like AIM and you just use your friends list to direct message people, then it's basically no different than, AOL instant messenger that you can also run, video and audio calls on.
Right.
Okay. Well, then maybe if I could get it to send me notifications in a way that means something to me, I might use it. But as it was, I was like, okay, I'm chatting with these people, but something's beeping. And I honestly
just disable disable like all notifications.
Yeah.
Except unless it's for like a direct message or something.
Right.
Because maybe that might be the first description I've gotten of it that helps me think I can use it. Thank you.
Yeah, because like if you part of it, you have a friends list that you can just direct message the way it was like AIM. And then a server, like I would avoid servers unless you really know what you're doing and want to be in one, because there are plenty of servers that I've joined that I've just ended up dropping. But even still, like I said, I when I made a server, I tailor made it to specific purposes and clearly labeled all the things. It's like, this is the place where I'm going to post the maps and the handouts, and this is the spot where we're going to have the in-game chat, and this is like the out of character chat, and this is this, that, and the other thing. And it's been very helpful for running like in my online D&D campaign, augmented with other software. But a lot of, like you said, a lot of the servers you join and there's all this seemingly useless information where people are talking, but they're not talking to you. And it's sort of like a chat room, but it's sort of not like a chat room. And it just becomes like a mess of useless information or useless to you information.
Yeah. And more than a bulletin board system, it reminds me more of like IRC on steroids.
Yeah.
Kinda. I don't know. But okay, yeah, I get it. I don't
I've
know.
never looked
Maybe
into it or any other platforms. After I had Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I'm like, that's my max. I can't do any more because I don't want to scatter my attention too much. I know this might sound pretentious, but my peace of mind really matters to me, and you don't want to be vectoring in too many separate directions at the same time.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't use it like a social media. It's just a way I keep in touch with certain friends. So it's not like that constant barrage of stuff like you would get on social media, especially if you're not joining a bunch of servers and you just use it like a very advanced version of AIM. Then it's exactly what it would sound like. It's just like it becomes kind of like another messaging platform, and you
Right.
can have you can have servers if you want them. Like once you figure that out, and like I said, I have a task specific server that I've built.
Well, and that was another thing is half the groups I joined had some weird gatekeeping thing where it's like, okay, you can't post a reply or anything until like either 10 days have gone by or 10 messages have gone by that you've rated or someone has vouched for you or this, that, or the other thing. And then you get approved for that forum, but it turns out it was only for that forum, not the sub forums in the same group. So now you have to go through the same process for every. I'm like, merciful Zeus, this is so much more work than is like, I'm not sure it's worth it,
Yeah, you have to have the secret decoder ring to get in their super secret club sort of bullshit. That sounds intense. I have not dealt with that personally, but I completely understand why you would just be like, fuck this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it really did stop being worth it, especially since there were like a lot of groups that I wanted to join where they sort of became irrelevant over time. Either I stopped being a fan of whatever it was. Like, not even there was, oh my gosh, I hate this now. It was just I sort of forgot to keep up with it, and then I stopped caring, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's whatever. So I didn't find it worth it to pursue Discord. I just whatevs.
I've thought about making a Discord for my YouTube channel, but the primary reason behind that is because I found that with specifically like social, Facebook, for example, I can make a tool time group page or like public profile page for that. But then of course they have it in such a way where, oh, you post a link saying that you created a new video or you posted something. Maybe we'll send this out to the people who liked your page, or maybe you can bribe us. And dealing with bullshit like that, having like I've thought about creating a Discord server for my YouTube channel, because if I want to communicate beyond the the normal boundaries of of YouTube on some other sort of social media, then it's not gonna run me through a bunch of bullshit the way that Facebook, like a Facebook or other social media would. And it's not like it's not just gonna disappear or get buried like Twitter or something else like that. But I have no idea what kind of if my subscribers or the people who watch my videos would even care about Discord, or if they're also in the camp of like, I don't even understand this servers, like sub threads. I can't follow this shit.
Do you remember when YouTube actually used to have tools to connect with your viewers so much? Like it was so much easier. You could send out announcements and stuff, and it was a lot easier. And you used to still be able to put up like I forget what we called them. They weren't cards. It was something else, but they were like subtitles in the red border or the green border, or the blue border, whatever. You remember those?
Annotation.
And all of that. Yes, thank you. Yes, and it seemed like we could connect more. And then a couple of times, more recently, I would do these sort of usability studies with the YouTube team, like, one of those sort of paid focus group kind of deals. And every time I would tell them, I miss all of these tools that we used to use to connect with people. I miss the 5-star rating system, so I didn't have to give an all in, up or down, and all that stuff. They're flabbergasted that anybody liked that stuff. They can't believe that the stuff they took out was stuff people valued. They had no idea.
Well, I mean,
Paul,
me and Peter talked in our interview last week about the fact that when YouTube was young, it was really sort of designed more like a social media website rather than an entertainment website like it is now.
Hmm.
What were you gonna say, Peter?
No, I was just about to mention that as well. I still remember, filling out like favorite bands and favorite TV shows on, like, if when you you would go to my old YouTube profile or channel page, it would more look reminiscent of like MySpace,
Right.
and they just slowly dropped all of that stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
remember you could post video responses to
I was
people?
about to say video responses, yeah.
And the sheer number, like they actually told me, yes, we send you more of a digest of comments rather than every comment you get. And I'm like, do you have any idea how many debates and arguments I've quote unquote lost simply because I didn't know there was a reply?
Right.
Where someone declared, "Oh, Bionic Dan says no more arguments," and I'm like, actually, I've got a ton of them, but I wasn't notified.
Yeah, right.
It's like it's totally not my fault, I swear. But by that point, they've decided, you're done, and it doesn't matter what you. Anyway, forget it.
This is something I feel like I've talked about in videos that I made a few years ago, but it seems to me that social media has kind of reached a point where it's over curated. And if I feel like in my head I remember making a video where I talked about how I watched something, I clicked on some article about Game of Thrones. There was an interview with Sophie Turner, one of the actresses on Game of Thrones, when one of the seasons was about to come up, and then from there on, my whole news aggregate site on my phone started pumping me with story after story after story. And I see this happen repeatedly. That was just the example I used in the video. You click on one article, and then suddenly it's like, here's a bunch more articles about the royal family or this actress or this subject or whatever, whether you want it or not. And that seems to me to be like a dumb way to do, say, news aggregation or social media aggregation, where it's like, you showed interest in one particular thing, we're just going to force feed you more and more and more of this stuff. And, like in the video, I mentioned how I was like getting all these articles about her personal life and her engagement to Nick Jonas. I'm like, I don't give a shit. This is a show that I liked. I was interested in hearing an interview about the upcoming season before we all realized what a disaster it was. And now it's like, I clicked on this one article and now I'm being, so it shows you a bunch of what it thinks you want to the point where you don't actually care. And then it hides a whole ton of things that it's like, yeah, well, I would have liked to have known that. And I've even gotten to the point where I did an experiment a few months ago. I went on my Facebook friends list and I went on like all of these friends pages that I hadn't seen in a while and just like liked one or two of their statuses because I haven't. And then sure enough, once I had liked one of two of their statuses, these people that I like rarely heard from, suddenly they're like popping back up in my feed. And it's like, once they're just giving you the same dozen friends on Facebook, you're only seeing the posts of the same, small percentage of your friends list. Once they're just feeding you more and more stories on the royal family or this actress or whatever that you may or may not actually give a shit about seeing every article published about them, including clickbait stuff, that I feel like the algorithms are kind of self-defeating, and people think that these algorithms are smart and have all this brain trust technology behind it. But I think that a lot of that is vastly overstated, and they kind of underestimate how dissatisfied we are with it at their own peril.
Well, if their goal is to sell us stuff, they're doing a lousy job at it. I've run my own experiments, and I think that Facebook is overly focused on certain traits about people because, I've recently turned 46, and so now my page is nothing but like retirement plans and compression socks. And I'm like, every time I hide those ads and then give like up thumbs and clicks to ads about geekery, spaceships, and dragons and crap, Facebook's like, nah, you're 46. You don't like that stuff. And like, I can't seem to shape my ads to give me stuff I might even potentially want to buy. Facebook wants me to get ads I don't want.
I think the problem is, and pardon me for using the colloquial because I love you, Kate, but the thing is, you're not normal in the way
Well,
that they're
no.
looking for normal. They're looking for what they think is normal, and people outside of their version of normal, you know.
But you'd think an algorithm would be smart enough to go, okay, these ads are getting hidden, no more of those. These ads are getting clicked, more of those. You'd think that would be the basic 101 in algorithm school, but apparently not.
No, I definitely get the demographic thing. I'm 38, so I'm getting ads for hair loss treatment and erectile dysfunction treatment. But I remember years ago, I don't know how relevant this is anymore because the algorithms changed so much. But I remember like 10 years ago on watching Hulu, and they give you advertisements, and they'd be, I was like a broke college student, and they're sending me like, things for high-end cars, and they'd have a little pop-ups. Is this ad useful? And I'm like, no, I can't afford these things. Finally, they showed me an ad for like Reese's peanut butter cups, and I'm like, yes, useful.
I don't know. I think what you were saying a minute ago, Peter, about how these algorithms and efficacy might be highly overrated, especially by the people who employ them. But they do. They think they work, otherwise they wouldn't be using them. And it makes me ponder what purposes they were using them for. That makes them think that it's working when it, like in Kate's example, it's not working for her, and your example, it's not necessarily working for you. And I can only estimate that there are a large number of people. I don't know if it's a majority or not, but I mean, who will click the recommendation, or I'm not that guy. I mean, I actually hate it when like Spotify recommends me a playlist, because I'm a DJ and I wanted to make my own playlist, damn it, and I'll listen to the music I want to listen to in the order I want to listen to it. I don't want you to give me your stupid suggestions.
Actually,
even though they're probably pretty good.
Well, okay, here's the thing about that. I want suggestions because I feel stuck in a rut with the music I'm listening to. And granted, when I say stuck in a rut, I mean I keep listening to the same songs over and over. I would love to get more in the same vein, maybe from other artists, but with the same energy, right? But the problem is that sites like Spotify or Pandora or whatever else is out there that's just like those two, they don't look at the song. They don't look at the structure of the song, the sound, the mood of it. They look at when did it come out, what other artists are considered similar, blah, blah, blah. Like my favorite band is Roxette. They have some kickin' rock and roll songs, where it's like, oh yeah, this is the kind of music you listen to when you're going Mach 2 with your hair on fire. But most people associate them with, Listen to Your Heart, It Must Have Been Love, all these like 80s power ballads. And so if I say my favorite band is Roxette, and then I tell them, okay, here's your Seeds song, start with She Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which kind of sounds like Joan Jett would be going, yeah, kind of song. But the next thing you know, I'm getting like freaking, these ballady songs from the 80s. And I'm like, that's not what I told you to find. And when I actually talked to someone, I forget where it was one of these sites, someone who worked there, it took me like forever to even get her to understand the concept of what I was looking for, that I was looking for songs that were musically similar, not demographically similar, if you see what I'm saying. And once I finally got her to understand, she was like, oh, yeah, that would be useful. But I've never found it.
I think the problem is that the qualities that you want it to compare songs for cannot be easily.
Yes.
Well, it's like it's not even that they're subjective, because there are objective ways to measure like tempo. I mean, there are certain ways to objectively analyze music, but it's more that they're not the sort of thing that can be easily put into a spreadsheet. So sometimes, I have examples where, I'll listen to a certain, 90s alternative rock, and then the next thing I'll know, it'll be like recommending like Limp Bizkit. I'm like, fuck no. Kid Rock. I'm like, fuck no. But at the same time, I understand why the algorithm is saying that, because it's like, okay, these are popular bands from roughly the same time period that were loosely categorized within the same, genre. And it's all about what sort of data points they're including in how these things are calculated. And like you were saying, it's well, this is the same time period, this is the same whatever. It's probably a lot of things that they already have, that they've already have tags of, or or have ways of cataloging the music. Like it's not going to be any smarter than the shelves of an old record store or CD store or
Sure.
whatever. It's not
I-
like
Oh, go on. I thought you were done.
I was just going to say, like, we're all led to believe that there's these super intelligent, artificial intelligent supercomputers. It's like bullshit. It's basically just running, like putting these things into a spreadsheet and then running off that. And like this artificial intelligence barely has the brains of a record store.
See, I'm glad you said that, actually, because it's a little bit not true, actually. I don't know if you know, I don't know how much you follow my, exploits, but I'm working on this really cool animated thing called Quinn Redshift. It's very like old school pulp space opera kind of stuff. And I needed a decent soundtrack. And I mean, there's some people out there who might have been willing to score a space adventure for free, but it wouldn't be quick, and maybe it wouldn't be for free. And honestly, I'd feel a little awkward. I have a friend who does a lot of my music anyway, and I've never paid him a cent. I've only ever given him credit, and I actually feel kind of bad about it. But I'm also broke too. So point being, there's a site out there called, I think it's called IVA, but I'm not sure. It's AIVA. I've never heard it pronounced, and it's run by a bunch of folks in Europe. So like my vowels could be completely off anyway. But it does this funky thing where it can do artificially generated, like procedurally generated music, but it can also take either a MIDI file or, now this is recent, like an MP3 of a song. It will analyze the song and use that as an influence to create other songs in the same style. And some of this music sounds like indistinguishable from music played by humans. Some of it you can really tell. I mean, the guitars, it sounds like some kid was playing around with the electric guitar setting on a like old Casio from the 80s. But the orchestral stuff is actually kind of creepy, how much it sounds like a real orchestra played it. And it's perfect for my project. And I've given it like music from like John Williams and James Newton Howard and Jerry Goldsmith. And have you ever noticed how many movie score composers have names that start with J? There's a ton of them. But the point being is that I used all of that, and this AI created a really good movie score for me that I will be using in my upcoming project. So I have hope that maybe eventually they will be able to have AI that can analyze the song itself and find you musically similar songs. I really hope that this is a stepping stone to that.
I will say that I'm also at least aware of procedurally generated music and what you're saying. And I should make the caveat that although there are certain things that are able to analyze music, and like I was saying, there are objective ways to analyze music, and then for AI to procedurally generate it, I think that when it comes to something like Spotify, essentially that's just more work than they're willing to put in. Like,
Yeah.
because you think about it, they have how many millions and millions of songs. They would have to run every single one of those songs through like through analysis, and then have this big database of analysis and be able to really be able to pinpoint the sorts of things that would make the songs similar. Like, I mean, maybe they would be able to do that entirely with AI, but just to be able to come up with relatively on the fly, relatively unique recommendations based on running every song in their catalog through analysis, I think that it would just require more processing power than they're willing. Because if the majority of the customers, I'd be like, oh yeah, I listen to Pearl Jam, of course I want to listen to Limp Bizkit. If those sorts of recommendations are fine for the majority of their customers, then why care whether or not like the songs they're recommending really have the same vibe as the song you're thinking of, when they can just feed you up like the same sorts of things. It's just like there's what's possible and there's what they're willing to pay for.
Right.
Well, I'll be honest, it wouldn't shock me if someone would be willing to pay for the cool version that can identify, musically similar songs. I mean, if I had the money for it, I'd hire a team and say, make this happen. It's like, you just have to have someone who's motivated, has a lot of free time and a lot of extra cash. I mean, that's usually what these things come down to. But I mean, if, dang, I had something, now I lost it. Oh, well. I was going
sorry.
somewhere.
I was just going to ask you about that program that you're just talking about there.
Oh, yeah.
Can it make music that goes with the visuals?
No,
Oh,
no,
'cause
you
that would
don't
be
you don't
super
have
cool.
you don't have very fine control over timing, over like, when it swells, when it crescendos, when it,
Right. When the
holds its
posts are and all that.
you don't have a lot of control over that. I have had to do a lot of like editing in post of the music so that it will fit with the timing, but I've made it work so that it should be seamless unless you really are looking for it.
Can it output a MIDI file so you can orchestrate it yourself?
I believe it can, yes. I believe you can get a MIDI file, you can get a WAV file, and you can get an MP3 file of anything you compose. I'm pretty sure.
Wow.
Yeah, because when you were talking about how the guitar doesn't, it sounds like a Casio keyboard, but the strings sound amazing. I have a lot of like sample libraries and that sort of thing. So I'm kind of wondering on its thinking in my head, having a lot of professional, music production software and sample libraries, like what it's using for the voices. And for
I
me,
can answer that. Actually, because they've been talking to like musicians and telling them, can we record you like strumming that string kind of thing to make sure it sounds realistic? Like they've been doing that kind of research. I think the problem that they were really having was that then they were just playing back that string and not bothering to make it sound like it was being played. Because I actually did talk to the developers a little bit, and I said, here's what I think is missing is that verisimilitude. I said, include some like pitch bends and vibrato and stuff where someone might do that in an actual song. And while they haven't actually gotten it really well, like they've gotten it decent-ish now. Like it seems like they're making strides in that direction.
I would say that for plucked instruments and instruments you hit one note at a time, or if you have polyphony, like say a piano, that recording samples, and because this, like I said, I have professional software, professional sample libraries, that the sorts of things that you're talking about are just inherently hard to do. There's a certain there's certain like workarounds, and they can, if they really go in depth with the sample library, do certain things like strumming, but it will be relatively rigid. Like they would have to take a person and it's like, okay, here's an A minor chord on the guitar, and we're just gonna do we're gonna record it 10 times, and then we're gonna have a thing that switches between samples every time it strums, so they don't all sound exactly the same. But there are some things that are easy to do, like sampling a piano, and there are some things like guitars and things that require like strumming like that are relatively hard to do to sound really authentic, because there are ways to program the MIDI to give like a strumming effect in terms of like how it's sequencing, how the notes are being hit, but to get that the effect of the strings resonating together like it would in a natural instrument, the only way you're ever going to really get that is to actually do it. Whereas most of the way sample libraries are just recorded one note at a time, like you said. So
Yeah.
it's possible, but again, it's hard, and that's not really what those sorts of things are good at. But with strings, they can do it relatively well. But when you start to get into more complex things like runs or legatos, but legatos just with switching between a couple of notes is easier than like a guitar strum.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't know music terminology very well at all. I think the only word I really know is staccato. But when someone is doing like a guitar solo, rock guitar solo, and they'll hit a note, and then they do that thing where they clench the string somehow, and it does that, like that, where you just get that pitch bend or whatever. Yeah. They've figured out how to do that, where before everything just sounded like the same note. It was like dan, 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 where it sounded honestly like a gigantic mutant hornet farting. And it did not sound like someone actually playing a guitar. It sounded like someone playing a synthesizer, hitting a note on a keyboard. they're getting better. They're making it sound more natural. That's what I'm saying. It's not there yet, but they've heard the feedback. So
Well, Green Machine asked in the comment section, when AI starts making better or equal music to humans, what will happen? I mean, I think that's already the case because, I mean, what is better or equal to? Music is so subjective, right? I mean, so that already may be the case that it's equal to. I don't really know, but all I know is they'll never get AI to play funk. Never.
Well, I have to say, they'll do those things where they feed an AI every script in the world and then tell it to churn out the best Batman script ever. And it's usually hilarious, but they're getting closer to actually making scripts that are coherent. Well, if you could do that with music, feed it every song that you like the same way to make the super song that is exactly like everything you ever wanted in a song and more. I'd be totally happy to play around with that AI. If I could say, here's every song that I think is similar, make the best song ever. They draw the Venn diagram where all of these songs are similar and make something perfect that meshes it all together in musical fusion, harmony. I'd be such a happy camper to do that. Or feed it every Roxette song and make the ultimate Roxette song ever. This sounds like so much fun. And I'd love to see a Star Trek episode about it because I bet it's the kind of thing they tackle.
Well, here's what's going to happen, Kate. You'll feed all your Roxette music into the computer and you say, give me the best possible song. And it'll just give you a little ticker tape that says 42.
I'm glad it was that and not, and it'll come out as Shatner singing Rocket Man, which is what I was expecting out of you. But
Running out his fuse out there alone. But I personally feel that it would take I don't think any of us will ever live to see that scenario because it would take more than just procedurally breaking down music. I think that, what Kate was talking about can be useful in certain situations, like her situation in particular, that kind of procedurally generated music can have its usefulness. But at the same time, to get a computer to understand music, because there's more to music than just the mechanics of it and the notes and stuff like that. There's the social context and style and all these things that require basically being a sentient being that can make that has artistic judgment. And I'm not saying that at no point will computers ever reach that point, but it takes a hell of a lot more than procedurally, the sort of ways that music is broken down and then procedurally generated to create, these sort of the type of music people like, where people feel like they're connecting with an artist and that there's an actual artist behind it with something to say or a personal style or something like that. A computer, I don't think it can ever really do that, because in a way, part of the reason is that these things, it's taking in inputs, so where's the part where it's just entirely, creative or personal? And I know those things are difficult to, they're somewhat intangible and difficult to, quantify or whatever. But I know that, Paul, you said you like Prince or whatever. Just pick an artist. Can you isn't there more to Prince than the exact way that he plays the guitar or writes the song? There's always the artistic element that would take computers being basically, human level sentience. And I think that none of us are going to live to see that.
I don't know. It's weird because I'm actually a little bit different. I mean, I don't need to know more about my bands than the music I'm hearing. In fact, there are a lot of bands where I didn't even know what the hell they were singing about just because I love the sound of it so much. Like there were a couple of times I got burned on this one where I'm listening to what I thought was a really kickin' punk song. And then on the 12th listen, I suddenly realized it's about skinheads. And I'm like, oh shit. I mean, but it was a great sounding song. And I didn't care about the context just because I loved how it sounded. And then I was like, oh gosh, I feel so icky. I hope no one heard me playing this. But even so, So for me, the context doesn't matter. All that matters is how do I feel when I listen to this. I had a friend who was very offended by a version of The Times They Are A-Changin' that I was listening to that I thought was a very beautiful song to listen to. And this friend of mine, he's all like, no, this is so wrong. That's not what the context of the song was. It's supposed to feel this way. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm really enjoying listening to this. Regardless of what it's about, they could be humming and not even singing the lyrics, and I'd be having a good time listening to it. So the context to me doesn't matter that much as long as I'm having a good time.
Well, we've done this before, but I don't know if you or Peter were here, Kate. So I'll ask the both of you now. I mean, what is your? Give me 3 examples of the worst cover songs you've ever heard.
Ugh.
The worst cover versions of songs that, like the new song, just ruined the old song.
I think if I've heard any if I've heard any cover songs that bad, I block them out of my mind. Out of like some sense of like self-preservation, like, you know, I cannot let the memory of the, you know, or they're almost like or it's almost to the point where they're satire, like, you know, she mentioned.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
William Shatner doing Rocket Man burning out his fuse out there alone. You know, it's almost, it's to the point where it's so ridiculous that it can't ruin the song. I don't think I've ever heard a cover song that just like ruined the original. There have been quite a few that I've been disappointed with, like Perfect Circle's version of Imagine. I found, like, I love Perfect Circle, but that's a pretty disappointing cover.
It's just wrong. It's wrong. It doesn't sound right. It hasn't got the feel of the song at all. You know what I mean? It's just wrong. That's a good example.
Well, what's weird is how many covers out there I like either more than the original or like just as much as the original, but it's in such a radically different genre that I can't compare the two, kind of thing. I mean, like, I don't really like country music by any stretch, but Me First and the Gimme Gimmes did a pop punk covers album of country songs, and their pop punk cover of Goodbye Earl by the Dixie Chicks kicks so much butt. It really does. You have no idea.
And the Dixie
like,
Chicks
also,
did a good.
Well, there's a band. It's actually Per Gessler's band before Roxette. The band's called Julena Teeter. It's in English, it means golden times. They did a song called Sommartider, which means summertime in Swedish. And it became this like sort of just summertime anthem that gets played constantly. You know, like what's that Mariah Carey song they always play at Christmas? Well, same sort of thing, but summer in Sweden. And I have so many covers of that song, from like punk to I think I have a metal one. There's Nightcore. I think I have one of those weird lullaby versions. I mean, it's just like there's so many versions of this song, and it's actually kind of cool that there's so many. And some of them are really good.
Well, I don't know. I think there's some songs, and I know this is totally like personal and simultaneously arrogant, but I mean, I think there's just some songs that should never be covered because they were done exactly right the first time. And I even feel the same way about some movies, but I mean, some songs in particular, like, and some of those songs that I think should never be covered have been covered loads of times. Like one of the ones I'll give an example of is Light My Fire by The Doors. I think it's been perfect. It was nailed. And in the first cover I heard of it was, I'm not sure if it was Jimmy Buffett or Jose. I forget his last name now, but that wasn't very
Iglesias?
Great. Huh?
Never. It was it Iglesias? No,
Jose
that's
Feliciano. Jose Feliciano. That's who I was trying to think of.
Oh,
And I've heard that song done in like a sort of a dinner lounge version, which made me want to puke. And I've heard it done in 2 different reggae versions, both of which made me want to puke. And I'm just like, leave it alone. You know what I mean? But again, it's not even one of my favorite songs. I just kind of think it's perfect in its original form for the kind of.
Now they need a version by the Chipmunks.
I will say this about cover songs in general, that I think that there are certain artists that have a good sense of what they can cover and put their own style on. And I'm not saying they don't necessarily improve the song, but they just know that they can take a song and they can put it in their own style, and it may not be the best thing in the world, but it will work in their style. And then there are just seem to be people that they cover something because it's a popular song because they want to, and they just don't have that I don't know, artistic editing filter, whatever you want to call it, that says, no, you would actually not be any good at this. And your take on it, is crap. And you should, some people just don't have that sense of judgment when it comes to doing covers.
Well, you ever have that totally mind-blowing moment where there's a song that's just been part of your life forever, and then you find out, like, when you're 35, that it's a cover, and there's another version out there, and it wasn't by the band. You're like, okay, take, for example, Come On, Feel the Noise, was not originally by Quiet Riot. I was pretty old when I found that one out, right? And then I went, and I listened to the original. I'm like, no, Quiet Riot did it so much better. And I'm sorry they fucking did, but I've had people argue with me about that one. And I've gotten into some arguments with Diana over whether or not UB40's version of Red Red Wine is the best. But, yeah, it's weird because I didn't know that was a cover for the longest time either.
No, I didn't know that was a cover. I'll tell you what, though, that I think to do a cover song, especially if you're like an up-and-coming artist, as opposed to an established artist and you just want to play one of your favorite songs. But if you're an up-and-coming artist and you want to basically ride someone's coattails and so you want to do a cover song, either try to be as faithful to the original as possible or do something so completely different that you've basically made the song your own. A good example of that would be Got to Get You Into My Life by Earth, Wind and Fire, which obviously is a cover of the Beatles song. And the two songs sound so completely different, they might as well not be the same, even though they are the same. Do
you know Down with the Sickness by Disturbed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard the Lounge cover by Richard Cheese?
I think I have, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's freaking brilliant. I mean, if that's not different enough for you, I don't know what is.
But in response to both of the, what Kay said and what you said, one example that comes to mind that I didn't learn it was a cover until I was, I don't remember what age I was, but an adult, I didn't, know for years, was All Along the Watchtower. And that's, Jimi Hendrix's version of that is a far cry from, Bob Dylan's, folk guitar version of it.
Right.
But that's also, a lot of people would almost consider that like, Hendrix's version, like the definitive version.
Yeah, I totally. I actually knew of the Jimi Hendrix song and knew of the Bob Dylan song. And originally I had mistakenly assumed Bob Dylan had covered Jimi Hendrix, which obviously turned out to be wrong. but because I had heard both versions, but for some reason I just thought Jimmy's was first. I don't know why.
Another one I find interesting is when there's artists that I absolutely just detest, loathe, cannot stand them because I only heard what got radio play and I like all of the B-sides and the stuff that didn't get on the air. What was the Cranberries, Zombie? I hate that song so much. You have no idea. It's just like tuneless caterwauling, that song. But Dreams, on the other hand, I adore that song. Lovely song. But I didn't hear it for years because it never got played on the radio. Same thing, actually. I mean, you were talking about Prince before. I could go the rest of my life and die happy, never again hearing When Doves Cry. But I hear some of the other stuff that he did that didn't get played on the radio. I'm like, this is really good. Why wasn't this on the radio? And then I find out that he actually wrote a lot of my favorite songs for other bands. Like, right. I think it was the Bangles or the Go-Go's or both, and I'm like, that's great, So, I mean, it turns out I really like Prince. I just don't like what they put on the radio.
Yeah, that's interesting to contemplate, because Prince was like popular and then not, and then popular and then not, and then popular and then not. And at the very end, he became popular again. And then obviously died. But so even when Prince was not popular, he was making pretty good music. And I know that I'm totally biased, but I mean, like, I personally think that Prince's music comes in like three categories. It's like, good, great, and amazing. And so nothing really to me gets less than good with Prince. You know what I mean? Even though some of it's really cheesy, I kind of like cheesy myself. You know what I mean? I can't name another artist who's done more songs about cunnilingus, and that all by itself cracks me up, So, wow. Yeah.
I had to look on my phone to remember who this artist was, but this is one thing that I thought of in the category that it's like, this is a good cover, but and it's perfectly listenable and good in its own right. But at the same time, I have mixed feelings about it. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Meg Myers' cover of Running Up That Hill by
Kate
Kate
Bush.
Bush. Yeah.
I
Because
have heard none of those artists, and definitely not that song.
so like it's one of those things where it's a good cover, and obviously being more modern, it has like a more modern sound because obviously it was recorded more recently, and it's perfectly good for what it is. But at the same time, like Kate Bush is such a singular artist that it's kind of like, okay, I don't even know, it doesn't shame it, but it doesn't surpass it either.
Right,
Well,
right. I think I have heard the song you're talking about. It's quite haunting sounding and kind of ghostly, isn't it? It's very much more sort of slow tempo as opposed to the Kate Bush version. Or am I thinking of another cover then?
Of course, sometimes a band will do a cover of a song that's pretty faithful to the original because they couldn't fucking play it any other way. Like They Might Be Giants doing a cover of Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba is one of the most perfect things you'll ever hear. Because who else could do a cover of that but They Might Be Giants?
I don't
I'm
even
just
know
saying.
They Might Be Giants.
What?
Kate, I'm old, remember?
Okay, but these guys were popular in the 90s. I mean, Istanbul, not Constantinople, Particle Man, no. No, they
No.
did the theme music for Malcolm in the Middle, for crying out loud.
No, when in the 90s, I was raising babies. I was a single parent. I didn't have time for
Nah.
music or entertainment or anything other than wallowing in my own self-pity.
Oh, well, all right. But
you
still,
weren't going to-
trust me.
You weren't going to illegal raves in the middle of a field doing ecstasy, listening to techno music?
No, all my friends were, though.
Yeah, and here's me growing up in boring-ass Vermont. I mean...
Well, I grew up across the lake from you, so...
Still, I mean, I remember how big a deal it was when my next door neighbors, their kids got busted for something. I don't even know what it was anymore. For all I know, it was weed, which at this point, that's pretty pathetic. But I think it was probably cocaine or heroin. But regardless, it was like this big, huge scandal. And I remember sitting in class when they're doing the I want to stay out of jail thing where they lecture kids about their mistakes with drugs kind of thing up in class. And I'm like, that's my next door neighbor lecturing the entire class right now. But I mean, that was like the most exciting drug-related thing that happened, really.
That's pretty funny.
I had a friend that got busted for weed and ended up having to join the Navy. They forced him to join the Navy. It was one of those situations where the judge is like, it's that or jail. And then after that, I always felt like I never joined the military, but I always felt like if I did and had like civilians come up to me and say like, thank you for your service, I'd look them dead in the eye. And regardless of whatever reason I joined the military, I'd look them dead in the eye and say, thanks. The judge said it was this or jail. And just to get like the look on their face. But
no, I wonder what if the guy had said, does it have to be the Navy? I get seasick and don't like fish. I mean, like, wonder if the judge would have said, okay, fine, you can be in the Air Force, fucker. I mean, I wonder.
Well, I think it was probably because like Iraq was going on, and you kind of have to be like the Air Force is, I don't want to say. I'll piss off a lot of people if I say that it's only the smart people that join the Air Force, but as far as I understand, you do have to have like the highest test scores, and they're the most selective. Lots of people want,
I picked Air Force off the top of my head. I could have said Army. My point is, was he told it was the Navy and only the Navy, or could he have chosen any other branch of the military? Was my question.
I'm not certain because this was probably almost 20 years ago at this point. But I get the impression that he probably could have joined a different branch of the service. But, like I said, with Iraq going on, the Army and the Marines probably weren't, going to be top tier choices. And the Air Force is like the most selective branch of the service.
I don't know. I think the wise ass in me would have said, okay, tell you what, can I serve out my time in the ATF?
39 years ago, a friend of mine in California got busted for something or other, and the judge said, "Look, you can go to jail or you can join the Marines." So he joined the Marines. He went to boot camp, did the whole thing, got out of boot camp, came around my house. Back then I used to do cocaine. We did loads of cocaine, and he got himself kicked out of the Marines and never had to go to jail.
See, I thought that's where that was coming. I thought that's where you were going to go with that.
You were right.
Well,
But the judge didn't. So it was the Marines kicked him out, but the judge who sentenced him never found out that he had been.
I guess he went AWOL. You know, he basically went AWOL, and then when they finally caught up with him, they kicked him out.
if there wasn't a clause in the sentence that said he had to complete a full term in the military, then he's free to go.
I guess. I mean, this is back in 1983 when you could just like decide to quit. You know, there wasn't a war going on that you were likely to get deployed to or anything. This is even before we started doing shit in Lebanon, you know. So yeah. Back
Yeah,
in
that
the
was
day.
another thing is like growing up in the 80s, I kept hearing about all of these like conflicts and military actions, and yet we never really seemed to be at war the way being at war was always portrayed for like World War II and shit, you know, and I know that most of these quote unquote wars were never declared wars with like, you know, Congress handing the president something to sign, their police actions or whatever. But I mean, it just seemed like we were constantly at war without being at war when I was a kid, and I never really understood it. And I kept hearing words like Lebanon and Gaddafi and you know, probably apartheid got mixed together in there in my head because I was too young to understand that that wasn't a war, you know, and all of those things. It just, there were all these terms that were thrown around. It's like chapter 2 of the Dragon Riders of Pern. It's that much of an information dump, especially when you're a kid and don't know any of this crap. You know, it's just a weird thing to go through that as a kid with like a Cold War on where you don't know who the enemy is and it seems to change daily.
Well, I mean, I'm so old, right? That when I was a kid, they had a general come to our school to give the whole school K through 6 a lecture on patriotism. And long story short, and I've mentioned this in a video, but that was like 12 years ago. But so I was 10 years old when this happened. So I guess it'd be 1972. And I was a good student. All the teachers liked me. The principal liked me. Everybody liked me. And then the general's up there and he's giving his speech and he's talking about Russia and being the enemy, the enemy, the enemy, the enemy. And then at the end of the lecture, he says, has anybody got any questions? And so I along with a few other students, stood up. And when he called on me, I said, how do I know the Russians are my enemy? I've never met a Russian. And I was given a detention for that. You know, this is the first time I ever got a detention because they told me I was being a smart aleck. And even today, I still see the logic of that question, even though I understand things are more complicated than I might have understood when I was 10, you know. But just because you tell me that someone's my enemy, dude, don't tell me. I'm not just going to take your word for it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how I felt.
That's a completely valid question.
Hey, but it's better that they brushed it aside as you being a smartass than, say, having your parents end up on some FBI watch list, you know, like COINTELPRO or something. Like, so okay, we got to investigate this little commie kid's parents, you know.
That is something I do wonder about. I mean, you can't really cleanse everything about yourself off of the internet. And I wonder how much of what we've said will either please or offend future governments.
Indeed, that's an. I mean, I'm wide open. Y'all both have seen my channel. I've put every opinion I have is out there. Plus, I've got 6 years of blogging, which, you know, you all don't know about, but the government probably knows my blog is connected to me and blah blah blah. Anyway, but I don't know the idea of rinsing my internet. I mean, it would be so arduous. I mean, I can't even imagine. Even if I knew how to do it. It would take weeks to do, you know, maybe months.
But there are a lot of aspects to this. I mean, I remember after January 6th, there were all those videos of people who were at the insurrection who are now on the no-fly list, totally losing it because now they can't get home. And I'm like, so you were basically openly, well, some of them were openly Nazis, some of them were openly QAnon, some of them were openly this, that, or the other thing, and they can never get rid of that now. And, you know, I mean, for me, I think that's a good thing. But what if it was something about myself? Like if I couldn't wipe the fact that I'm a lesbian off of the internet and now we have a homophobic government, you know, so it cuts both ways. But it also got me thinking, how can anyone ever get elected president from like my generation or after, because all of the stupid stuff we've said since we got online, all of the stupid videos we've made, all of the gross things we've said, all the things we've said when we were too stupid to know better are now on the internet. And if you try to become a politician, it's all going to be there as dirt for your enemies. But of course, all their shit will be there for you too. But even so, it's going to be the most like mudslinging high school girl fight you ever saw in politics. When
Right.
we start getting, like Xennials and Millennials and hell Gen X as presidential candidates, it's going to be crazy pants.
Well, yeah, I don't know if you all remember or ever even were exposed to a channel that used to be called Pogo Bat. His name is Dan Brown. He had a very popular YouTube channel for a long time, and he ended up going on TV for a while. And I'm not even sure what Dan does these days. But and I don't want to speak too much for someone else, but I will say a few things I learned about Dan as watching his videos. When he was like a young guy, like I guess in his early double digits, he got to go to the White House and met Bill Clinton. And I guess Dan's probably same sort of age as my kids, so it's born in like 89, 90, around that sort of age era. Anyways, and so he got to go to the White House when he was young, met Bill Clinton, and then decided when he was a little boy or still a boy that he was going to try to be president. And he grew up in the internet age, and it had already dawned on him by the time he was 16 that with the internet, you've got to be really careful what you put out there if you later on want to try to become the president. And I really do think, even though he decided now that he doesn't want to be president anymore, as far as I know, last time I talked to him, but I think you would have to adopt that attitude. You'd have to go, well, if I'm going to be getting into politics, then I better watch my P's and Q's online. You know what I mean? And if you're already 40, it's too late.
There are so many things I've said and done online where if I wanted to get into politics, it doesn't matter how much I disagree with my past self anymore. Also, you notice that is like,
Right.
You can't say that's not me anymore. It's too late. Once you've been the center of a scandal, you're irredeemable. That's too bad, and so there are so many things that I've said and done on the internet that would basically disqualify me for holding any office.
Sure.
So what you seem to be saying, Paul, is that in order to be a politician nowadays, you'd have to be a willfully duplicitous and manipulative person. But how is that different than being a politician at any other time?
Well,
Maybe
I don't
it's just
necessarily
the
think you have
flavor
to
of
be
duplicity.
duplicitous. It's just that you have to understand that I mean, we should all guard our reputation. And one of the problems is the internet has given us a medium zone where you don't necessarily have to guard your reputation because you're not necessarily going to get any real world consequences from your behavior on the internet. And so we've I mean, that's not always true, of course, but I mean, it happens. A lot of people have this sort of veneer of invulnerability because there's distance between you and I. And, what can you really do unless I'm a psychopath and I'm going to use my internet skills to dox you and everything else? You know what I mean? But I mean, most of the time it's just pixels, insults on the internet are just pixels, it's nothing else than that.
Well, it's funny, I was recently diagnosed with autism, and I've come to realize, I'm trying to identify things that might start to push me toward a meltdown, and I'm trying to find them when they're at the rumbling stage, and stop them. And what I've been doing is when I find myself getting pissed off at someone online, I usually just go, "I like you, you're silly," and walk away. Where it feels like I'm leaving with some face saving without, just sort of like, "Oh, shucks, you defeated me," But at the same time, it's also removing myself from a potentially toxic situation, gracefully, I feel, but maybe they feel cut down, but I'm actually a little okay with that.
Well, I don't even know how to respond to that.
I'm not even sure it needs a response. It's just something that I've incorporated into my world.
Right. How long ago would you get your diagnosis, Kate?
I think it's like 3 weeks now.
Oh, okay. So you're still
I always suspected a little bit. But I and I took every online quiz. I read every website I could find, and I was like, okay, I should get a diagnosis. There's too many things converging, But it was weird. After getting the answer that I'd sought, it didn't really make me feel better, because then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm autistic. It's not something you can change. You can't exercise and get stronger. It's but at the same time, there are things about it I don't want gone. There's like a certain perspective that other people don't have, and it actually comes with some really killer hearing, believe it or not. Like being neurodivergent actually comes with enhanced senses, and hearing is one of them. I am really good at detecting sound that other people can't hear.
Oh, wow.
So and also just like a lot of my creativity, I'm sure, stems from having that neurodivergent brain. So, like, it'd be great to lose some of the negative aspects. Meltdowns suck ass, but at the same time, I'm not sure I'd want to change this aspect of myself if I could.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like, with ADHD, there's upsides and downsides to it. But I was gonna say, as far as like, neurodivergence, I have a cousin who's on the spectrum, and he became fascinated with like power lines and the power grid from a young age. And I remember talking to him, 4 or 5 years ago, and he was, maybe late teens at the time, 16, 17. And I was asking him different questions about electricity and the electrical grid and things like that. And I realized it's like he knows more about this subject than I knew about anything when I was that age. Just like that. It's like, I'm not an unintelligent, uninformed person, but just like his depth of knowledge at that age was just astonishing. And it was
Well,
something that was fascinated with from like a young age. Like he would build models of power lines and stuff like that in his backyard as like a young kid and stuff like that. And now he works as a lineman.
Well, a bunch of years ago, some very well-meaning but ultimately misguided friends for my birthday gave me a copy of Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. I got to play it twice. The first time, no one else got a turn because I just won. Like you get to keep going. The next game, I was only allowed to play until I got a pie wedge, and I still won. And I haven't played the game since. Also, I've worked in 4 video stores over the years because I was around for video stores. My first job in high school was at Empire Video on Shelburne Road. And like, if you needed someone connected to Kevin Bacon, I could do it so quickly. Like I was so good at that. My knowledge of movies was insane. So, I mean, yeah, that like I'm hyper focused on that stuff. And these days I have a sort of weird obsession with license plates, actually, especially like clever vanity plates. And I've also noticed there's so many plates from Washington State in San Diego. I don't get it, but I've got a lot of these,
Is it my impression, or do a lot of the people who they have Teslas and they'll have some like insufferable vanity plate to go along with it, like smoke free, or it's just something. It's like it's one thing to have a Tesla, but do you have to have a vanity plate that makes me want to punch you in the face? You like to go along with it?
Well, it's funny. There are databases out there that will tell you which vanity plates are and are not taken in certain states. And in almost every state, the plates I want to have are taken. So I'm irritated by that.
Give it up. What would they say?
Well, okay. I kind of do and don't want, because I don't want to piss off the cops, XLR82XS, accelerate to excess, right?
Right, yeah.
But there's one.
I saw that on a Lamborghini, that exact license plate.
Yeah. I'd love to put it on like a beat up old Volkswagen Bug. But there's another one. It's right here. This 2GAT123, right? That is the 555 phone number of license plates. You look at movies, you'll see that on cars all over the place. Look at like Beverly Hills Cop 2, LA Story with Steve Martin. There's a few others I could point to. That 2AG123 is like the Wilhelm scream of license plates. It's in everything. Yeah.
I never noticed that.
I know that someone has that plate in California. I'm hoping when I move to Vermont and get a vehicle, it's still available there. And I'm hoping nobody in Vermont watches this fucking show and gets there before me.
They'll have it, and they'll have it on like a fucking tractor or something because it's Vermont.
Well, I don't know. Hey, people play hockey here. It's not just for Canada. They might have it on a Zamboni.
A Zamboni?
Go ahead.
Are there Is there an Amish population in Vermont? I mean, there may be some, but I don't know if they're, you know.
Well, let me put it this way. While I was raised there, nobody mentioned one.
Yeah.
Right.
So, although there are a fair number of Mormons.
Kate,
I
you
mean,
can
Joseph
win
Smith was, like,
1,000
there or
coolness
some
points,
crap.
Kate.
What?
You can win 1,000 coolness points right now because I saw you had a whole bunch of movie license plates there, like the Out of Time and the Ecto One, and so
Sure.
so if you can win 1,000 coolness points if you can tell me the movie this comes from. BDR 529.
Well, that sure sounds to me like the Blues Brothers.
Awesome.
Illinois.
Huh?
1,000 coolness points are yours. Congratulations.
Rock and or roll. I wear my sunglasses at night, which has nothing to do with the Blues Brothers, but it just seemed like the right thing to say. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it's dark and we're wearing sunglasses. It does have
Oh,
something
well,
to
I
do.
guess a little. Okay, sure. Maybe that's where my
Yeah.
brain was going.
It's 155 miles to Chicago. We got half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Hit it.
Yeah, showing the license plates and seeing an Illinois license plate, it reminded me of in what was it, The Dark Knight, how they had the Gotham license plates, but they were clearly like based, because it was filmed in Chicago, and so the license plates were clearly Illinois license plates that they just like slightly changed the design to say Gotham instead of Illinois.
Right.
Well, I've noticed that in a couple of examples of that. I don't know if you ever watched the show My Name is Earl, but they very clearly wanted to give a sense of like, this is the American Southwest, but the license plates were just like black letters on white plates with no other adornment. There was no way to tell where it was actually set. And it's clear that was deliberate. And I've seen that done a couple other times too, where it's just they want to give you a sense of somewhere without like pinning it down.
Yeah, because they don't want to accidentally, with the My Name is Earl, they might accidentally insult a whole demographic.
Could be.
I love that show. My kid used to watch it when it was on, I don't know, way back 15 years ago or whatever. But yeah.
Well, someone suggested it to me recently. I watched it and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would.
Well, what do you think of the basic concept of trying to make amends to be forgiven for your own mistakes?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, someone who tries to do that kind of thing might mean well, but could end up doing a lot of harm trying to make up for, like, maybe there's someone who doesn't ever want to see you again and you're trying to make amends, brings everything back up and makes it so much worse kind of thing. I mean, I forget if I said it when we were live or if it was still in the green room, but an ex of mine contacted me a few days ago just out of the blue on Facebook. And this was like, if you know the story, this was the ex that really fucked me up.
Right.
And so I wasn't really sure what to do. And it felt like she was at that point of like, say, the 12 steps where you're going around making amends to people.
Right.
For me, it was super awkward and I didn't know what to say. And I was halfway between hitting the block button, shouting at her, "Be gone, witch," or actually hearing her out. And I ultimately heard her out, but at the same time, it brought up a lot of baggage. So if you're going to go around like trying to make up for your karma, you'd better make sure that people are receptive. Otherwise, you're going to do damage.
Yeah, it's one of those ideas that maybe sounds better in a AA handbook than it does in reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think if it depends on the persons involved, because I mean, like, I have people in my own personal life who've tried the whole 12 steps thing, and when they try to do their contrition thing, it just goes completely wrong, because a lot of people, unfortunately, don't really know how to apologize properly, and by that I mean, if you want to apologize and have your apology accepted as such, you need to show that you recognize that you've made a mistake. You're not just saying I'm sorry so that you'll recognize I've apologized. You really need to show someone that you recognize that you've made a mistake, that you wouldn't want to be in their position, and that you will undertake not to, do the same thing again. That kind of thing. All three of those things at least should be part of an apology. I'm sorry doesn't do anything. You know,
It's it's probably that they have a personality disorder comorbid with their addiction, so they go to try and apologize, and their whatever is going on with their psychology, like having a personality disorder, that just end up like becoming defensive, or whatever that will cause the conversation to spiral. Because you're right, not everybody knows how to apologize, and it's one thing to try and go through the process, but if they don't have the interpersonal skills to manage something like that, then it's just becomes like a gesture that some manual has obligated them to perform.
Well, if an apology contains the word "but" anywhere in it, it's probably not an apology.
Well, one thing that actually was kind of nice to hear, though, was that like she sort of made it clear that our relationship had been as intense for her as it had been for me, because I was always feeling discarded, you know?
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
Finding out that,
but I didn't know you felt discarded about it. That's
well, I thought I was a blip on her radar,
right.
Okay. And it turns out not. And that actually really did help. I mean, it hurt, but it helped, Well,
I mean, isn't it my recollection that you saved her life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that you can't be a blip. You can't be a blip when you save someone's life, Kate. Just
true. But the way that she broke up with me seemed really callous and heartless.
Right.
It was one of those, like someone sees a really hard road ahead, and so they don't want the person they're with to have to tread it with them, and so they break up with you to spare you that pain kind of nonsense.
Right.
Never mind that she did it after I stood with her for the brain surgery she had to have. And that's kind of wacky that both of us had to have brain surgery. But, it was like I stood with her and then she dumped me. She could have dumped me before she had the stupid surgery. That would have hurt a lot less, But I don't know. I mean, it was good to know that I wasn't just, a random bump in the road.
Right.
That helped.
Well, it's good for me to know that it's not just straight women who can behave that way, I guess. Like, I don't know. But I feel like I've been in situations where I don't know if it was necessarily like they foresee some difficulty in the road for themselves, where they just foresee any kind of difficulty, and you're left in situations where it's like, wow, given the way that given that you dropped me like that, and maybe had a new partner like that, you kind of wonder, like, okay, what did I mean to you?
Yeah.
There's definitely situations like that where that it can be. Yeah, it's amazing how jarring situations can, like, you can perceive situations like that when those are often the situations where you don't get closure. And so in some ways, yeah, if you're receptive to it in that moment, then I guess it's good that she did reach out to you, even if it did feel, formulaic as part of some program or whatever.
Well, I mean, I don't mean it sounded formulaic. I'm saying it felt like what she was doing was the making amends part of it. Felt like she was in that mode, but it didn't feel scripted in any way, if that's what you meant.
Well, that's what I meant. Not scripted in what she was saying, but just like doing it because, like, this is the step, like, this is the step I do now. Yeah, I meant
that wasn't the impression I got. I just sort of got. I don't know.
It just felt like you just made that association in your mind without necessarily.
And I'm only guessing anyway, so don't quote me anyway. So yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's been a weird situation, I have to say. I mean, does everyone have that relationship in their past that started very quickly, burned very bright, and ended in disaster and screwed you up for a while? Or is that just me?
Is there other kinds of relationships?
Yeah, actually, sure. I mean, the relationship that got me to Seattle was pretty domestic, certainly by comparison.
Sure.
I mean, 5 years of just the two of us living in the same apartment, occasionally having sex kind of thing, I mean, that's a very different relationship than what she and I had.
Sure. No, I mean, I've definitely, I made some incredible romantic blunders. I mean, the woman I was seeing before, the current gal that I've got now, we had like a 3-month thing in the summer of 2016, and it was absolutely brilliant. And I didn't even think I could fall in love again. And I was falling in love at the age of 54, and I was so freaking happy. I could barely believe it. And then all of a sudden, it was one of those situations, and we probably all had this, where the other person thinks, well, I wasn't really ready to fall in love, and I'm falling in love, so I have to end it now before it's too late, because they get to the point where they realize their feelings want them to commit, but their lifestyle doesn't want them to commit, and so they bail. And that was hard. We dated for 3 months, and I cried for 7 months afterward. It really fucked my heart up, you know what I mean? But at least it taught me that I wasn't too old to fall in love, because I kind of was very cynical at that point. Before I met her, I thought, well, you know, that love's for the young, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, I have to admit, I do feel like my dating pool is very, very small. I mean, number one, like, I am moving to a much, 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 much smaller state, where the state itself could probably fit in half the city. But, like, you know, I mean, seriously. But not only that, but I'm moving to a very granola part of the world, where I'm already in a community, because let's face it, there's a lot of Wiccan lesbians out there. There's
Right.
very few that are as covered in sci-fi tattoos as I am. You know, I wave my geek flag pretty high. And then I'd have to find someone who can put up with the neurodivergence, or hopefully someone who finds it cute. You know, and then someone who actually finds me physically pleasing, et cetera, et cetera. It feels like there's two of you out there who might potentially maybe want to give me a try. You know, so it's like, I'm at this point not even looking. If it finds me, it finds me, but why bother?
Well, that's exactly where I was when it happened to me in 2016, you know, and but that, like I said, that feeling of falling in love, I thought I was too old for that. I really did. You know, I thought you could grow to love someone because, you know, you admire someone's characteristics and blah, blah, blah. But no, I mean, I felt like I was a goddamn teenager. I couldn't help myself. Do you know what I mean? It was like falling into quicksand for me, in a good way, until it ended with misery. You know?
Yeah, well.
You know?
Well, I wonder how many relationships start quickly, burn intensely, you know, got right under my skin, and then turns into, like, you know, 60 years later, we're still domestic and in love kind of relationships. It seems like the ones that burn fast like that fizzle by the end of it, that they don't end up turning into something long term.
I don't know. I haven't had a long-term relationship, really. The longest one I've ever had was like just shy of 10 years, and that was with my second.
My longest is 5. Bite me.
Right. Well, considering my longest one was my second wife, and, you know, I really thought we'd be married forever. You know, it felt like 10 years feels like a failure. It doesn't feel like a long time, you know, to be with. And we were only married for 3 years anyway. You know, we were together for 10.
And it was the best 2 years of your life.
No,
come on, it's an old joke. Come on.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, you know, when it comes to relationships and, you know, trying to reconstruct oneself after a breakup, because, you know, it depends on the reasons you break up, of course. But, you know, like both my wives, and you can go ahead and laugh at this because it is amusing in the abstract. I mean, both my wives didn't just cheat on me, but they had babies with the guy they cheated on me with. You know what I mean? And that's going to have an effect. You can't help it. You know what I mean? And you have to examine yourself and go, well, I'm the only common denominator in both those relationships. So what is it about me that, you know, made my wife's run off with someone else, you know?
Well, that's not just limited to romantic relationships. I've had something with the same energy, but not the same details happen with platonic relationships. Like, whenever I move somewhere or join a new social group or whatever, I have a tendency to attract someone, doesn't matter what age the guy is, but he fills the role of protective older brother. No matter what, I find one of those when I move somewhere. And inevitably, he'll find a relationship and we can lose contact almost immediately. And that is beyond frustrating, but the only common factor, like you say, is me. what the hell am I doing wrong here? I mean, maybe I should just make sure that my male friends all seem undesirable so they don't get into relationship.
I don't
No,
think
that would be evil.
I think you're overthinking it. I mean, I think bottom line is it doesn't matter whether it's a male friend or a female friend. A lot of people, when they get involved in a relationship, a lot of friendships sort of fall by the wayside, you know, and that's either because they're spending too much of their focus on their new relationship and they don't have the time, or maybe the new partner is jealous of close connections and doesn't like you to be friends with person X, Y, or Z, you know, that kind of thing. You never know. Different people are different.
I just want to jump in here real quick. Although I do have, my armchair theories about why the fast burning relationship, the dynamics of fast burning relationships and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time for that tonight. So maybe we can pick that up in a conversation on another night. Where you have if you do any more Friday shows. But it's 10 something here now, and I got to get up early in the morning. So I was gonna bid you all good night.
Thanks for hanging out, Peter.
Have fun. It's been a while. Maybe it shouldn't be as long next time.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing more stuff like this on my own channel as well. If you want to be on like a roster of potential talk show host or whatever.
Absolutely.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, Raven and Joe are on another live stream right now because Raven didn't know I moved the show to Friday, so she had her show this Friday. Apparently,
is it just this Friday? Is this a one-off thing or?
This week, it just happened to be this week. But like I said to you before, Peter, in the interview, I mean, I'm going to be doing more often, either one-on-ones that aren't necessarily interviews, but just, one-on-one chats or like this, where we just have 3 or 4, but no more than 3 or 4, rather than 6 or 8 or 10, God forbid. 10 is a really hard conversation to hold, and inevitably when you have more than 6, for sure, some people get shut out, I mean, that's not cool.
Especially when there's lag.
Well, that's right. And one of my reasons for I wanted to make the shows shorter, and I also wanted to sort of try to be more proactive in making sure everybody on the screen gets a chance to talk. Because if there's 6 people on screen and only 3 people talking, I just don't think that's cool. That's not what I'm after. So.
Yeah,
and I'm guilty of this too. But some people hold the floor way the hell too long. I'm not naming names, and I'm admitting I do it too, but still.
What were you gonna say, Peter?
I was gonna say, yeah, that's a thing for me too. It's if I get home from work and I have, maybe an hour and a half where I could jump on and do this. If I'm gonna spend, 98% of that time just listening to other people, it's like I could just as soon not be on camera.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, well, hey, thanks again for hanging out tonight, and I'll be in touch. I'm grateful to see you again so soon.
All right, have a good night.
Peace.
Have fun.
Well, it's just me and you, kid.
Yeah, so it would appear.
Yeah.
I don't know, where were we before we were saying goodbye?
We were talking about the difficulties of breakups and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had a few amiable breakups. I've had a few, loud screaming breakups. I've had 1 or 2 really pathetic breakups, but that makes it sound like I've dated a hell of a lot more than I have, and I don't know why, because it feels like too much even to me, and I lived it. So I'm gonna have to do the math on that one.
Well, hello, Kazoom.
Oh, hello again.
Hey.
Yeah, the thing about it is, for me, is I don't remember how long it was. I don't remember. I think the first person that broke up with me was my 3rd girlfriend. And so I think I broke up with my first 2 girlfriends. And I didn't really realize what it felt like to be dumped until I got dumped. And boy, it sort of made me more careful, about dating in general, because I don't want to break someone's heart. It's really important to me not to break someone's heart. Just because you try each other on like a pair of shoes and see if you fit, and if you don't fit, you should be able to go, well, that didn't work, but hey, you're cool, see you around. It doesn't always work that way. In fact, it usually doesn't work that way,
I mean, I've had one relationship where it was like, yeah, this isn't working. We're both like, yeah, we're just not, we're
Yeah,
phoning it in.
I've had that a
Friends,
couple
yeah,
times.
friends, like that.
Yeah, I've had that a couple times. What about you, Kazuma? Have you had amiable breakups or rough breakups?
Um, I mean, I've had breakups. I don't know whether they to call them good or bad. The last one, I was not a good person in the relationship, and so um, I just have a lot of regret in my past relationships. I don't like how I was. So
Let's see. And do you feel that? I mean, do you ever dump anybody, or have you usually been the person that gets dumped, or which was it for you?
um, well, I've had someone I've a couple times I've had someone dump me, and once I dumped someone else.
Yeah.
When it comes to relationship, everything else were just hookups. So
Right. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing, as a heterosexual fella. Once you cross 50, hookups just don't have anywhere near the same sort of level of appeal as they might have done when you were younger, even when I
yeah,
was 40s. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like just the idea of potential emotional entanglement to the point where it might cause me emotional pain or even trauma is just like, well, is a couple hours of fun worth that, really? It's just like you
yeah.
start weighing it up in a different way. It was whereas when you're younger, anyway, when I was younger, I should just speak for myself. But when I was younger, I mean, it's like I'll roll those dice every week, man. That's fine.
Hmm.
You know?
I don't know. I never felt that urge to go out and get laid. I mean, between, girl and lesbian, the sex drive is a bit low. And I've always been looking for a relationship, a connection
Sure.
more than just the physical, like manifestation of sex, the doing of it. I don't know. It's just, but then again, like the black mark on my avatar there indicates demisexuality, and I'm more and more wondering whether I might be ace. But I've just never had that intense interest. Whenever I hear about like guys going out to get laid or whatever, I'm like, I can't imagine having that as a mission.
No, I've never had it as a mission. Well, actually, I lie. When I was unsuccessful in my 20s, I was consistently unsuccessful at it. But I did go out hoping to get laid every weekend, but I never did. I mean, like,
Hmm.
yeah. But it was a little different in my 40s because it was the opposite dynamic. I never ever was looking for it, and I kept on hooking up. Um, because people were up for it. And it was like, and it was just a different time for me as well. After my second marriage ended, I was so disillusioned. I thought for sure I was never going to fall in love again. And so it just occurred to me that, I might as well take it where I can get it, sort of a thing. And to my great surprise, there was a lot of people that wanted to sleep with me. So
Hmm.
it was easy because in Cornwall, right? I mean, I don't like to disparage an entire nation, and the Cornish are kind of their own little mini nation within a nation. But I mean, like, honestly, it's the loosest place I've ever lived. I mean, the people down there are all promiscuous, and
Hmm.
it doesn't even seem to matter um, for a lot of them. Not all of them, of course, but I mean, I've watched people that I know are married who are like apparently in love with their partner, and then they go out with the girls on the weekend and they're totally up for whatever, and they go home to their husband, everything's fine, and the guys are probably taking advantage of the fact that their wife is out with the girls and they're out doing their thing as well. And it's just like, it blows my mind. It's a completely different attitude to sex in Cornwall, and yeah, people are just much more receptive to the idea than I've ever normally witnessed or experienced.
Huh. I don't know. I'll just be happy with someone where we both want to be each other's snuggle muffin.
Sure, I'm happy to snuggle, that's for sure. I love snuggling.
I mean, that I will be perfectly happy with that, to find someone who wants to snuggle and not leave.
Yeah,
That's
and
all I need.
and likes sci-fi.
Well, yeah, that's the not leaving part.
That's pretty funny. But I mean, this is why you should go to like, Comic-Con type stuff, because
Which is ironic. I'm moving from San Diego, where they have Comic-Con, to frickin' Vermont. I really should stick around long enough for just one Comic-Con. I've lived here for what, like 6-7 years, and I've never done it. Usually because of money, but I don't know.
Well, I've never been to any of those type of events. They look like fun, Kazuma, have you ever done like a Comic-Con or any of these role play events where people get all like dressed
I
up?
have not. I've wanted to, but yeah, money was always a thing when they were around. So I mean, a problem when they were around. So
Right. Hey, have either of you seen the movie with Simon Pegg called Paul?
Oh, of course.
that's with an alien, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, you have seen that one. Yeah, because that's my favorite sort of spoof, sort of sci-fi comedy that I've ever seen. And I think it's genius that they're sci-fi geeks on their way to one of these cons, and then they meet an alien. It's just a great story. The movie almost writes itself. It's that kind of movie.
I mean, that's the thing, is it does seem like Simon Pegg plays himself a lot in movies. I mean, like my first exposure to him was the show Spaced. And, I'm pretty sure like between him and the rest of the cast, like a lot of them were probably playing pretty close to who they are or what they're into, at least. Given the movies we see from these people later, there's a lot of geekery going on, and they have to love it to keep doing it, you know?
Right. Okay, so what's your favorite Simon Pegg movie?
Ooh. Now, define Simon Pegg movie. Is it enough to just have him in it, or does he have to be a major protagonist?
It turns out to be, just have him in it is fine. So if it turns out it's Star Trek, that's fine, I guess.
Well,
but I mean,
I was leaning towards Ready Player One, but okay.
right,
Actually, though, The World's End is definitely a contender. I really like that movie. In fact, one of the characters in the animation I'm working on is at least a little bit based on Simon Pegg's character in that movie. A little bit. It's like 1/3 him, 1/3 Willy Wonka, and 1/3 Ted Theodore Logan. But go on.
Right.
I don't have I'm not that familiar.
Right. Okay. So Simon Pegg, he's in so many movies, but I guess because he's a British star, it's a little bit more obscure. But I mean, he's in like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, and he's the star of Shaun of the Dead, right? And Hot Fuzz, and like World's End is another one.
In the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, he's playing Scotty.
He's played Scotty in the and those ones.
Okay.
He's in a lot.
And did you see Ready Player One? He played Ogden, whatever, the guy who worked with. Wow, why am I blanking on these names so bad? But he was like the sidekick to the dude who created the Oasis. Ogden something.
I haven't. I've seen pieces of Ready Player One. I haven't seen the whole thing yet. So.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Watch the movie before you read the book, or you will be disappointed.
Okay.
Like, I love the book, I love the movie, and I think it's because, well, I had read the book like a decade before the movie came out and forgotten a lot of details. And then when I watched the movie, I didn't have a lot of expectations. I knew the basic idea of what was about to happen, but I was open to whatever they were going to show me. If I had just read the book and wanted the book on screen so bad, I would have left the theater fuming. But because I read the book after, I was like, I can accept this for its own thing, and I loved the movie.
All right.
So it's all about expectations.
Yeah.
Yes, Ogden Morrow. Thank you.
Yeah, I can totally dig that on as far as if you watch the movie and then read the book, it's nowhere near as devastating. In fact, you might appreciate the book more instead of hating the movie less or liking the movie less. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just want to acknowledge in the chat. Hello, Abby Normal. It's been a long time. It's very nice to see you here. Thank you for stopping by. That's I feel it right here. That's cool. Anyway, what else was I going to talk about here? I don't know. I'm kind of running out at the moment.
So now we get on Simon Pegg. You mentioned Paul. for some
Oh
reason.
yeah. Well, I mean, I just like I say that I just think that the movie kind of writes itself just from the premise.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You just take the premise and run with it, and
Well,
you have a whole movie.
it would be interesting to see. Like, there are a bunch of movies I could say this about. I'd love to see them do it as a non-comedy.
What, the same sort of premise, but as a non-comedy, and make it
But
like
yeah, without it being wacky and slapsticky and poop jokey. I wonder what Paul would be like if they took it seriously.
Close Encounters, maybe. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe more like Starman, really,
Yeah, maybe.
or,
Actually,
or
that's
like Starman meets ET. You know?
right. Right. I forgot about Starman.
Man,
Yeah,
I can
they're
imagine them. I can imagine them trying to remake that now.
They are. Well, wait a minute. I think they're remaking Starman. They might also be remaking The Man Who Fell to Earth, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, they're redoing Man Who Fell to Earth. It looks like it doesn't look bad, but it also doesn't have any of the same feel as the original movie. But most people hated the original movie. I enjoyed the original movie, but most people hated it.
That's
It
Dave
got
Bowie,
terrible
right?
reviews.
If
Yeah,
there was
David Bowie.
any-
Yeah.
If there was any potential for me to like that movie, it was gone because I watched it when I was way too young.
Right.
Like, my parents liked David Bowie, and they're like, "Oh, kid likes Star Wars. She'll love this. The guy's an alien." And it's not a little kid movie, that one.
No, it isn't.
So,
No.
And I imagine that the new movie, they're trying to make it as big of an audience as possible. So, yeah.
Okay, so I would like to give you an example of a movie that I cannot, because you know how many movies get remade over and over and over, like every 10 or 15 years you'll get another
Sure.
version of the same movie. I don't know, like Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice or something like that, or fucking God forbid Robin Hood or Batman or Dracula. But one movie that I think is so ripe to be remade is Logan's Run, right?
okay.
Because that was like a mid-70s sort of sci-fi thing where the special effects were just really piss poor, and it's a really good sort of really good premise. You know, I mean,
It is really hard to watch now.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the premise in the audience, in Logan's Run, it's like it's sometime in the future after the apocalypse, and people live in this dome society where nobody lives past the age of 30 unless they're regenerated, and then it turns out that nobody's actually regenerated, and the only way to keep the society flourishing is to kill everybody off when they're 30. And
they make people believe that they're going to be renewed through this thing they call the carousel, and yeah,
and nobody gets renewed. And it's just a really and just the when they finally escape the whole thing and get past the robot and everything, and then they get out into the post-apocalyptic world. I wish they explored that a bit more in the original movie.
Well, there was a TV show. I mean, I understand it was pathetic, but they made a
the TV show was
out of
terrible.
that.
I forgot about the TV show. Yeah, it was.
It would be interesting to see a remake of that, especially since, like I say, watching it now, it's a bit of a slog. Like it really takes its time. But you know, other than that, I mean, it is an interesting premise. And actually, a lot of the movies of that era had that same sort of similar, like, dystopian apocalyptic premise to it. I mean, look at THX 1138, right? Or
Right.
What are some of the others? And the Rollerball is a good one. You know, Zardoz, don't get me started. You know, a lot of them had that same energy.
I never saw Zardoz, but I did see
Oh,
Rollerball.
it's
with James Caan.
awful.
I never saw the remake of Rollerball because I did not want to taint my original impression of the original movie, because the original movie was like really, really gritty, and I was probably too young to watch it when I watched it in the cinema. But we got in, so we watched it, you know.
Well,
When it comes to Logan's
sorry, I just wanted to, on Rollerball real quick. I was too young when I watched it. I was not ready to appreciate the message. I just wanted some flashy sci-fi, so I was disappointed. I should watch it again now. Anyway, yield the floor.
With Logan's Run, the book made the age 21. It wasn't 30.
Wow.
And 21, to me, that's just stretching it. That's taking the notion too far. I thought the movie did a better job by making it 30. And so I imagine if they made another movie, they probably wouldn't go with a 30. They'd probably go with a 21.
I
And
think they probably
I
go
can't see that as being
40
nearly as
is
good.
30.
Huh?
I don't see how a society like that could work unless there was some unseen cadre of elders that worked behind the scenes. Because, I mean, I know what people were like at 21, and I can't imagine them running any kind of society or government or domed world. That place would fall apart so fast.
Well, I mean, the
Unless,
civilization was controlled by an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
You
So
ever play the tabletop role playing game Paranoia?
no.
Oh, it's such a silly game. It's very tongue in cheek, where all the players are troubleshooters sent to go out and shoot trouble. And it's like this society run by a demented computer. The computer is your friend, trust the computer kind of thing. And so you're going around trying to enforce these sort of Orwellian doctrine on all these other people around you who are doing really silly things that you get to interpret as treason. I mean, like I say, very tongue-in-cheek game, but it has that same sort of Logan's Run energy to it.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool, actually. I don't know. What's a good movie that that you're not aware of any remakes that you think should be remade? Doesn't have to be sci-fi, but whatever.
The Mouse That Roared.
Great example.
I want to see that redone where all of Peter Sellers' parts are played by Hugh Laurie.
Isn't he a bit old for that now?
Well, maybe not, but he's perfect for it, isn't he?
Well, he would have been in 1995, but I'm not saying-
I know. But you see what I'm saying is that would be a great movie to remake. I mean, the time is ripe for it. And it's also just a great concept that unfortunately was come up with way too early.
Kazoom, are you familiar with the premise of The Mouse That Roared?
No.
Okay, I'll just briefly give you the summary. And Kate, please correct me if this is too much of a simplification. So basically, Peter Sellers plays the, I think he might even be a dictator of some
He was a queen.
obscure
He was
country.
a queen. Or like a duchess or something.
Yeah. Anyway, he's like the absolute ruler, and the country's in a state of economic decline and poverty and possible revolution, even if I recall. And so he decides to attack America, and then let America occupy the country, because by occupying the country, America has to give everybody health care and food, and and so that it would basically fix the country if they were occupied by America. That's kind of the premise of the movie, as I recall it. I haven't seen it for so long.
But what ends up happening, though, is they go to the United States where everyone, like the false air raid or something, like goes off. And so everyone goes all duck and cover in the bomb shelters. And so this invading army finds the streets deserted. And they end up finding this, like, they call it like the Z bomb instead of the A bomb or something. And it's like supposed to be powerful enough to destroy the world. And so they pick it up and take it home. And when they get home, they're like, sorry, we won the war. Like, we've got this weapon. We took it from the most powerful country on earth, and we won. And and Peter Sellers as the queen is like, but you were supposed to lose. And so that's why they're the mouse that roared. You see, they were like supposed to get squashed and ended up being the lion. Basically, it was it's an interesting premise, but watching it now, it feels so dated. Is the problem?
Well, it is. I mean, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so
yeah.
Well, I mean,
what would you 3 years ago or something? So,
how would you feel about if they redid THX 1138? I mean, that movie. I mean, I loved that movie and its quirkiness and some of its strangeness. But if they remade a movie like that now, I mean, they could. There is so. I mean, it's endless what they could do with a movie like that now.
Well, my worry is that they would do to that what they did to Westworld. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, I like a lot of the stuff that they're making out of other stuff, but does it always have to be dark and grim and full of naked people?
Those are the
You know what I mean? It's like, well, no, I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but they're making it everything. It's like that song that gets overplayed on the radio. Like Netflix is nothing but naked people now. I mean, look at The Witcher, Look at Westworld. What was that other one I was thinking of where it was just nothing but naked people on Netflix? And I'm like, some of these things I'd like to be seen done not as softcore porn. Some of them.
I'm here to vouch for the validity of naked people.
Kazoom, I will agree as well. I'm just saying tone it down a notch or two. You know, maybe
Well,
not
it's
like every 3 out of 4. You know what I mean?
I mean, while they can get away with it, while it's something I shouldn't say, while it's something new, while there's a novelty to them being able to do it, they're going to push the envelope of as much as they can, but it'll calm down. It'll tone
Well,
down.
I will say that I'd love to see THX 1138 done, like redone, just because a lot of the technical stuff, like some of the sounds that were in there were like those primitive 70s electronic noises that were more headache inducing than interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd love to see some of that toned down just so it's less irritating to watch it. But other than that, I'd just like to see the story done. I mean, heck, there's some Black Mirror episodes that aren't too far off in spirit and energy. I'm sure they could do a THX 1138 justice now.
What's your favorite episode of Black Mirror?
Well, I haven't seen all of them.
What?
But I keep like getting distracted by other stuff. It's like I start watching Black Mirror and someone says, "Have you seen this?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." Oh my gosh! And I just like do a deep dive into Young Sheldon or something, you know.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay, you're gonna go. I'm preparing for the. I haven't seen Black Mirror yet at all. So
But that's because you don't have Netflix. Is that correct?
I do have Netflix, but I haven't watched Black Mirror yet. So
Oh wow!
I'll have to check that out. If it sounds like it's a worthwhile series. So
well, you know the premise.
I don't know.
Oh, well, the basic idea is the Twilight Zone or Outer Limits. Like it's every episode is a new story. There's like you don't follow the same characters. It's a what if scenario presented for you, and it's usually like about modern times or technology. It's as I understand it, the title is holding up a mirror to the world, but showing you its dark side.
The Black Mirror case.
Wow.
No. I'll show you. Hang on.
That sounds awesome. That
I might
awesome.
even be wrong about that. That's my guess about the origin of the title. I don't know.
Kate, can you see the screen right now? Okay, here's your Black Mirror. We've all got one. Hang on, it'll go black. There's your Black Mirror.
Okay.
There's your Black Mirror. The technology. Okay. It's all about, and what as Kate just said, every episode is like a separate what if. What if we did this with technology? What if we took this technology and went this direction with it? Mm-hmm. And one of the more comical episodes is called Nosedive. And basically it's about everybody can rate each other. And the higher you're rating, the more things that you can do in society. And
there's an episode of The Orville like that.
There is an episode of The Orville very similar to that. But in Nosedive, this woman wants to move into a different apartment, but she doesn't have enough points, and she goes on this mission to try to increase her score. And then this is a tale of disasters. It's really good. It's a great episode, and it's one of the more lighthearted, not scary or intense or make you have a nightmare kind of episodes, which some of them might be. I mean, that episode White Bear, for example, I could totally see how that might give someone nightmares.
There is an episode that drives me up the wall just because I need to get hold of the dude who wrote it and ask him a fucking question. Okay, it's that one where those two guys start playing that VR street fighting game and end up sort of making out with each other in VR, but when, they take off the VR, it gets weird, right? Well, the one playing the female character in this VR game, the character's name is Roxette, goddammit, and it's spelled exactly like my favorite band, and I want to ask that writer, was that Convergent Evolution, or was that a tribute, or what the hell, right? And I can't find that writer to ask that question. It's pissing me off, right? So there's that.
So this sounds like a series I really want to. I've been wanting something that's more like a Twilight Zone, and something that. Yeah, I love the stuff that you can sit down and watch any episode from any point, and it's still okay. You don't have to know all this huge storyline before then. I mean, it's nice when I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those, but it's nice it's nice to have these shows that you can just watch singly. And I really want to check this out now. Thank you.
Now, if I had to pick a favorite episode of the ones I've seen so far, though, it would have to be the one that people forced on me to make me start watching the show, and that was the Star Trek episode. I don't know what it's called, but if you've seen it, you know what the fuck I mean. Okay, well, that one I have to say, like, people made me watch it because they wanted to ask me, like, what would you do? And I'd be like, I'd do just what they did.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Absolutely, I'd do just what they did.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I mean, I don't want to spoil it for you, so I'm not going to say anything else. But when you get to the Star Trek episode, you'll go, okay, I'll know what Kate's about on this one. So, yeah.
Okay, so Kazoom, if I may give you a little coaching, the first season only has 3 episodes. The second season, I think, has 4 episodes, and then the third season has maybe 5 or 6 episodes, and then the fourth season has a few. Anyway, the first season only has 3 episodes. Don't watch the first episode. It's the only episode. It's still good. It's still good.
Is that the one with the pig?
Yes, the one with the pig.
Okay.
It's still good, but the premise is so far fucking fetched that you might think, I can't watch this. And then you'll give up on the whole series and miss all the brilliant stuff that comes after it. So if you're going to watch Black Mirror, start from the second episode, and then after you've watched 3 or 4, go back and watch the first one, and you'll sort of it won't be such a jump into cold water.
I will second this advice heartily. Yes, that first episode is not a good entry point into the series at all.
Yeah.
I mean, once you have the premise, like what they're doing, once you really get it, and then you watch that episode, you'll go, oh, but if you watch it, the very first episode you see, you'll be like, what the frick am I getting into? So, yeah.
Yeah. And apparently, and I'm not even sure if this is really true at this point or if it was just an urban myth, because, the pandemic began 2 years ago. And apparently there was a 6th season of Black Mirror, which Charlie Brooker decided not to release because he read The Room, and everyone was locked down, certainly in Britain. And he realized that it was not the time to be putting out dystopian, depression stuff when everybody was at home climbing the walls.
Well, I'm glad someone has that kind of sense, because I remember like back in the 90s and everyone was all Gen X and emo and crap, and the world was kind of going down to the shitter. I get that. But for me, when times get tough, I want my music and my entertainment to be joyful and happy and fun to take me away from it all. And these people were wallowing in ennui and pathos, and it was pissing me off. So if someone is saying, you know what, let's not release dystopian fiction during a pandemic, I applaud them.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I want my lighthearted fluff when the world turns to crapola.
This is one of the things that we talked about with when some of the discussion I had with Joe and with Raven is how lately the only kinds of movies that are uplifting and joyful and have that sort of thing seem to be the well, I shouldn't say this is the only, but it's the primary thing that's pushed out there anyway, are these superhero type of movies. And that's what people seem to that's the only thing that seems to give people this sense of positivity. And when people like myself make fun of them and say that some of them they're just I don't like superhero movies. I just think that they've been done too much. It's overkill on them.
Agreed.
But I was going somewhere with that, and that's okay.
Movies giving us hope, and only superhero movies seem to be doing it.
Yeah, and I wish there were. What I want are positive sci-fi movies.
Agreed.
That aren't something that seems like a Marvel movie.
Sure.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm working on a project right now, have been for quite some time, and it is going really well. I finished shot 373 of it, I think it was today, called Quinn Redshift. It is old school pulp sci-fi. Right, we're talking like Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, Spaceman Spiff, Duck Dodgers, Buzz Lightyear kind of stuff. That sort of thing. It is in no way pretending to follow real science. It's just for fun, and it is sort of a positive message. Space pirates have stolen this device that's needed to refine fuel for a new drive that might allow Earthling kind to get further than Mars finally. Right? And so the whole thing is about going and tracking down these space pirates and taking back the device they stole. is the story. It's very classic, like love letter to my childhood kind of story, that's just unapologetically about having fun. It's not there to have an agenda. It doesn't have a message. It's just, let's go on a rockin' adventure like it's Indiana Jones in space.
Well, I know that I'm partly preaching to the converted here, but I mean, like the whole positive message sci-fi, but can still have darkness and serious things. I mean, that's what Babylon 5 was to me, right? And I don't know. It is unfortunate. I think Kazum, you're right. It would be nice if they had more sort of don't get me wrong. I think there's a place for like dystopian movies and all that kind of thing. In fact, I kind of like them, but what I don't like is usually they end up focusing on the interpersonal human drama rather than the big picture about what the world would be like and how the world would work and blah, blah, blah. It always focuses on the minutiae, unfortunately. And I kind of, if I was going to see a dystopian sci-fi movie, I would want it to really explore the wider sort of, what it was actually like rather than, I don't know. I can't really think of an example right now. But it is unfortunate to me how they get bogged down in like Hollywood movies like to get bogged down in the son hasn't really got along with his father, but now they have to get along in order to survive or that kind of crap. You know what I mean?
Well, Hollywood has all these like check boxes for scripts. It's like, oh, a movie has to have this. It has to have that. And they just take it as so axiomatic now that they don't even question it. It has to have a romance. We can't put this movie out there. It doesn't have a romance in it. You have to put in a romance. You have to put in some comedy for the kids, that kind of thing. It's like, you can't just tell a fucking story.
Yeah, they're formulaic in that sense. And Kazum, to your point, I mean, superhero movies are particularly like that. You'll have maybe a bit of a confrontation or something exciting happening at the very beginning. Then you'll have the medium fight somewhere toward the middle of the movie. And then you'll have the climax fight somewhere toward the end of the movie. And usually they will not let you see the same people fighting in two different sets of fights. So every fight has to be a new set of characters fighting, blah, blah, blah. And it got to the point when Endgame where you've literally got hundreds of characters charging, because we haven't seen that yet. But that's about all we haven't seen is everybody doing it at once kind of a thing,
Yeah.
So
I think it would be interesting to see things more like okay, Brazil was a dystopian reality, but it was kind of a love story. It may not even have seemed like that if you try to watch it. I mean, you got to watch that movie several times to actually figure out what's going on it. But I don't know. I love the idea of putting a positive spin on a dystopian reality. So, and that can be uplifting just within itself because it's showing that people are able to get past this negativity. Yeah, there's all this shit around, but people will persevere through it,
Right.
Maybe that explains it, because for a long time I've been describing Brazil as a movie where I have absolutely no idea why I like it. Right. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that positive that underlying positive message. Maybe that explains it.
I mean, it ends like really awfully. I mean, as far as happy or sad, but it still had this positivity, human spirit thing still going in it. You could see that in the main character.
I can't.
I mean, it's weird because that is not a Kate movie by any stretch. I don't know why I like it, but I do.
Yeah, I just remember. All I remember is that I liked it. I might have watched it on mushrooms, so I don't really remember anything about it other than that I liked it. But that was a long time ago. That was back in the 80s when I lived by myself in Alaska, and all I did every night was rent videos and watch videos. So when you do that every night, you end up watching 100 movies every 2 months, and they start to sort of meld together after a while, and you can't really remember.
Sorry, hold on. Total brainstorm. You want a positive dystopian like show, whatever to watch. The Last Man on Earth, if you've ever seen that. It's sort of I can't call it a sitcom, but it's not a drama either. I guess you could call it a dramedy. About this like guy who survives a plague of some sort, and thinks he's the last person on Earth, and then he finds someone, and it doesn't go very well. And he's very hapless, and it's sort of a silly take on the, you know, sort of like lone survivor concept of dystopia, because it gets awfully silly at times, but it makes you glad it did.
Well, that sounds cool.
It's worth watching, I'd say.
Yeah. Listen, friends, we're getting to the 3 hour point, and as you might know, I'm trying to wrap the shows up around 3 hours unless we're too deep in it. And I think this is as good a time as any to call it. So I want to thank you all for hanging out, and oh, hang on.
And just so you know, the plumbing issue was completely taken care of. We can flush toilets again. We can,
Yay.
so everything's good. So
to what Abby said, yes, that's the one I mean. Exactly. The one with, is it Forte? I mean, I don't see an accent mark on his name when I see it spelled. Is it Will Forte? What is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, that guy. The one who played Randy Wampus on How I Met Your Mother.
Right. Anyway. Okay. Well, dusting it off. And again, thanks, friends, for hanging out. And I'll see you in the after show. And thank you, Abby and the Green Machine and whoever else is lurking out there that I'm not aware of, for hanging out with us and being so good-spirited and not giving anybody on screen a hard time. So until next week, peace out.
Have fun.